Hey guys. This is part 7 of What If Naruto Was in Bloodborne. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one, and also please check the author in the description. Let's start.
We are pain, that's all. We are God.
Chapter 22, Chaos of Increased Scale. Naruto watched nervously as Gaara and Sasuke squared off in the arena. The Uchiha wasn't dressed too differently. His shirt was black and he wore black pants instead of white shorts. Also, instead of arm warmers, he had bandages around his left arm with a leather brace over that, his right arm bare. Kakashi was getting some stern looks. What happened with your matches? The Jonin asked casually. I won. Sakura got badly hurt, Naruto said shortly without looking at the man. Kakashi supposed he deserved that. The Jonin just hoped it was worth it, and if Sasuke survived then it was probably worth it. Ebisu frowned. Sakura Haruno used what I taught her well, but her opponent was stronger, he explained. Naruto turned to Neji, then glanced at Hinata. Has he actually apologized at all for the preliminaries? He asked. The girl shook her head and the blonde glared. Neji blinked. It was a fight. I knew the area ninja were close enough to save her life, he pointed out. Not the slitting her wrist part, you jackass. The trying to trample all over her self-confidence. Naruto snapped. Admit you were wrong and promise never to try to crush her dreams again, he insisted. Neji frowned as Sasuke displayed speed that made Guy and Lee gasp. Is this really the time? He asked through grit teeth. The blonde glanced back at the fight. Hinata nodded hesitantly. It can probably wait a bit longer, Naruto-kun, she said, and the boy pouted but nodded, the blonde apparently satisfied by that for now. Kakashi, Guy began carefully. How did Sasuke develop that taijutsu? He asked, and Naruto finally noticed that Sasuke's movements were similar to Lee's. Sorry, Kakashi said as he scratched the back of his head. I must have adopted a bunch of taijutsu when we sparred. So when I use your weights idea to get Sasuke-kun's speed up where he won't die, it must have bled into his style, he apologized. Guy smirked. I am not bothered. If anything, I'm flattered enough of my taijutsu style has bled into yours to notice in your own student, he answered. It happened so gradually to your style I never even noticed, he commented with a chuckle as he crossed his arms. Sasuke was still having difficulty. Naruto watched carefully. The blonde wondered how he had been so easily distracted from the fight. He felt he should probably be more worried about Sasuke after what happened to Sakura, but he wasn't. The Uchiha then made use of a Fuma shuriken that was completely covered in Kibaku Fuda, 2 tags on each blade, but the explosion was still stopped by the sand even if it warped the metal of the weapon. Gaara was momentarily shell-shocked and Sasuke unbuckled his brace. The Konoha Genin ran through a quick set of hand signs and poured his chakra to his left hand as he crouched. Don't tell me that's Guy began, startled by the familiar jutsu. Kakashi just smiled under his mask. One of the reasons I took Sasuke-kun under my wing this past month is because he shares some similarities to me, he said as Sasuke's chakra pulsed with the sound of chirping birds as it took the form of white-blue electricity and damaged the ground near his left hand. I see, Guy muttered as he watched the Uchiha charge. So that's why you had him increase his speed, this ninjutsu. He understood why, but it bothered him a little. Yup, Kakashi said cheerfully as if nothing was wrong. Ino was amazed. His chakra is tearing up the earth as he goes. Goes Sasuke-kun, she cheered. What is that? Naruto asked curiously, the noise catching his attention more than anything. It's a hand chop, Guy began. However, it's an original ninjutsu crafted by Konoha's top jutsu master, Copy Ninja no Kakashi. He continued, talking up his rival a moment as a man was measured by who he measured himself against. It's a jutsu reserved for assassination. The secret is in the speed of the thrust and the pulsing right-hand chakra that can carve through just about anything. The pulsing electricity produces the unique attack sound that resembles the crying of 1,000 birds. He explained. Accordingly, that move is called Chidori. He finished as Sasuke plunged his left arm through the sand's attempts to stop him and into the right side of Gaara's chest. Kankuro and Temari's eyes widened in alarm. Their Jonin commander's jaw dropped in horror at the sight. Naruto was surprised. But what bothered him was the way Gaara was reacting, namely that the other Jinchuriki wasn't reacting. Chidori, Guy mused despite the grisly situation, also known as the Raikiri. He continued. Raikiri? Ino asked, unable to look away. Guy glanced at Kakashi. Raikiri is the nickname, not because it is made of right-un chakra, but because Kakashi once used it to cut lightning. He explained to the surprise of the listeners, the formal name is Chidori, and the secret of its power lies in the speed required to use it, and the pulsing chakra that, combined with the speed, form a blade that can cut through anything. He explained. Gaara lifted his right hand and grabbed Sasuke's left arm. Blood? He wondered, this is Dash? No, it's fine, the boy grimaced. It hurts, but if it doesn't hurt as bad as that thing, then I am alive. He declared as his Suna no Yoroi melded off down his right arm and formed a clawed appendage over his arm. Sasuke tried to pull away, but the sand and the boy held firm. His Sharingan eyes widened in panic at the growing pressure on his arm. The Konoha ninja who had seen the preliminaries all tensed in alarm, but the arm was different to the sand somehow despite being made of it. The arm was monstrous, covered in black markings somehow. How did Gaara dash? Kankuro began to ask but clammed up and exchanged nervous glances with Temari. Hanbei raised an eyebrow and glanced at his own Jonin commander, who had gone pale. Sasuke lifted his left foot and kicked, flaring his chakra as he tried to wrench himself free of the sand gripping him tightly. He winced at the pressure on his arm but managed to pull free and leap back. Gaara staggered, so he checked his left arm. Thankfully the bones weren't broken, but the Uchiha could feel some muscles, and possibly ligaments, had torn while breaking free of Gaara. The Suna Genin's open chest wound filled with sand. Sasuke was pretty sure that was not a real Iri ninjutsu, and that just keeping the blood inside was not going to be enough against an injury like that. Gaara sure proved him wrong when the sand took the same oddly smooth but black marked texture as his arm, as if the sand was becoming flesh as it densely packed and formed up over the right side of Gaara's face. I feel like I missed a lot of context, Sasuke said blandly. This is not just Otan no Jutsu. He pointed out the obvious. What the fuck actually are you? He asked with narrowed eyes. Gaara was still hunched over, but now it seemed less pained and more predatory. I wanted to fight the Uzumaki, but Hakuya wants your blood, Uchiha. He snarled before he swung his monstrous right arm to launch a volley of Suna's shuriken. Sasuke decided that pointing out his question had not been answered would be futile, so he just dodged and glanced to catch the expression of the proctor, who was just staring at Gaara in open-mouthed shock with his Senbon on the ground between his feet. How did he dash? Shit, this wasn't the plan. Temari cursed. What do we do? Wait for the signal, Baki-sensei? She asked, directing her question to the Suna Jonin with a veil hanging from his Hittite covering half of his face. Baki noticed the Konoha and even AIM ninja looking at the Suna cell curiously. Gaara would not leave willingly, and would now likely rampage until stopped. Signals be damned. I suppose then, that Gaara has become the signal, he said simply. All the Jonin moved at once. The AIM Jonin grabbed Hanbei and pulled his genin away as Kurenai made hand signs and Asuma stepped to Baki while brandishing a pair of trench knives he wore like brass knuckles. Kakashi lifted his Hittite and watched Baki with his Sharingan as the Suna Jonin broke Kurenai's Genjutsu and engaged Asuma in Taijutsu. Temari leaped but was intercepted by Kakashi, who was in turn intercepted by a masked Odo Jonin. Feathers fell down on the crowd. Naruto blinked, his vision blurred at the edges before it returned to clarity, as the Genjutsu failed to take hold. Oto Shinobi, Chunin and Jonin were in the stands among the crowd. The Kage box erupted in a smoke cloud. Kankuro and Temari left the combat range of the Konoha Jonin, who had to fight to protect their own genin. Guy's right foot lashed out thrice and knocked 3 Oto ninja away with his foot. Niji, Tenten, evacuately along with any other genin who fell under the Genjutsu. Kurenai-san, can I ask you to go with them? He ordered his genin and requested his fellow jonin. Shino Kurenai began to order before noticing Shino had already chased after Kankuro. Fuck, she cursed before she lifted Kiba. Hinata-chan, you're with me, she ordered. The Hyuga nodded hesitantly and stood to follow her sensei. Karen stood. I'll go with them, she told Naruto. She knew there wasn't much that could dissuade the immortal boy from fighting. Naruto hopped onto the railing and leaped down to help Sasuke as Anko moved to stop an Oto shinobi from hitting him. The blonde jabbed out at the older ninja with his left fist, and a flare of chakra and the Kaiomi Supika stunned the man. Anko didn't hesitate to put a kunai in the throat of the enemy, and use his body to block a volley of shuriken as the stands became more chaotic. She winced as the ache in her neck returned and looked around for the source of her agony. "Shikamaru, I know you're not asleep," Asuma said sternly. "Help capture the enemy." He ordered as he woke Ino, wake Choji and evacuate with the others. He ordered as he deflected a shuriken away from the girl. Kakashi made to assist his two students with Gaara, but a shuriken thrown precisely where his head would be if he jumped halted him. The person who threw it was dressed like an Anbu of Konoha. "Some of the enemy infiltrated our Anbu," he warned. "That was particularly bad." Sasuke risked a glance at Naruto. "What are you doing?" he asked. "In case you hadn't noticed, tournament is over, there's an invasion," Naruto pointed out. He cast a worried glance up at where the Hokage had been sitting. The roof above it now had a dark box that the blonde could only guess was some kind of Kekai ninjutsu. "This is my fight," Sasuke retorted. "Do you have a way to deactivate his sand or contain a Jinchuriki?" Naruto asked dryly, and the Uchiha scowled but shook his head. "Then let me do that, then you can deal the finishing blow," he promised. If he managed to fully stagger Gaara and break his posture, then the blonde knew what his instincts would do. He wasn't sure if he could use the Kyuubi as an excuse for whatever that visceral attack was. Sasuke sighed. "I knew I should have worked on my genjutsu," he grumbled. Naruto scoffed. "Genjutsu doesn't work on crazy people anyway. It's good you have that Chidori to use as a blade," he praised. "Now, let's kick this guy's ass," he declared as he raised his left fist. "As if we'd let you tag team Gaara," Temari yelled as she swung her fan with a leap into the arena. The proctor stepped in between the genin and the blast of wind with a shunshin, and crossed his arms to take the blow against his guard. The proctor winced. "Hurts, but not sharp enough to kill." "So it was your sensei who did it, or someone else?" he mused. Naruto was confused until he realized the man was talking about hate. "So," Gaara chuckled wetly, "I get to rip apart both Uchiha for Hahaya, and Uzumaki for me." He laughed like a madman, which he probably was. "What's your problem with me anyway?" Naruto asked with a frown. Gaara scowled. "Your gauntlet hurt me," he snarled, "and worse than that, your presence, the way you carry yourself, the way you look at me," he rambled. "I am not prey." He roared and swung his arm to throw more Suna shuriken. "I don't care if you have a similar presence to Hahaya, I have to kill you." Naruto was not sure how to react to having the same presence as whatever Gaara was talking about. Even with context, he had trouble getting what the Suna genin was on about. He and Sasuke leaped to either side to encircle Gaara as Temari readied her fan while glaring at the proctor. Asuma staggered back with a spray of blood. Guy and Kakashi covered him to stop a pair of Oto shinobi finishing the job as Baki leaped to assist his students. A cat-masked Anbu saw that exchange. It was him, she hissed before she charged after him. The proctor saw Baki coming and lifted his guard, but winced as the unarmed man carved deep gashes into his arms. "So you're the bastard who killed Hayate-san," he growled before he hopped back, palmed Saban and threw them. The cat-masked Anbu threw shuriken as she readied her ninjato. Baki swung his arms and cut the metal out of the air with focused blades of wind chakra. "I really need to learn Futon no Jutsu," Naruto commented, since that had looked useful and powerful. The blonde almost lost a lung to a spike of sand, but he found it hard to focus when so much was going on around him, and the arena was at the center of it all. Naruto wanted to help the civilians, assist his fellow Konoha shinobi, and protect his home, but he was only one genin. Naruto decided never to mention that thought process to anyone, and that he would put more chi no ishi into whatever arcane was as he made the crossed-fingered bunshin sign with his hands. "Kinjutsu, taiju kaiga bunshin no jutsu," he intoned blandly and pushed as much chakra as he dared. In a massive cloud of smoke, the invading shinobi found themselves completely outnumbered. Granted, the reinforcements were dispelled in a single hit, but each one wielded their own Kaiomi Supika and teamed up with already fighting Konoha shinobi. A few were backstabbed by enemies disguised as Anbu, which made the blonde frown as he staggered. Gaara sent a spike of sand at the staggered blonde genin but hit a log instead. "Naruto, what the fuck is your chakra? Sasuke asked bluntly. Having been the one to use Kawarimi to rescue the blonde, he felt he deserved an answer. I think that Ayu no Mizu might have permanently increased my reserves somehow. Naruto muttered. He had no idea if that was actually true, but it was another theory to stack onto all the myriad of strange abilities he had. Someone needs to teach you something destructive and offensive with that chakra. Sasuke pointed out. You can't have Gokyaku no Jutsu or Chidori though. He denied before he was even asked. Kakashi said you need Sharingan to use Chidori anyway. He added. Stingy. Naruto complained as he stood up beside his teammate and pulled out a scroll from his bandolier. How much do you need to be the one to actually beat Gaara? He asked. Because I think the exams are kind of over, you know. He pointed out dryly. It's a matter of pride at this point, and I did not train for a month to beat this guy only to lose here. Sasuke snapped. Go help someone else, he insisted with a scowl, but he hesitated. If you see me use Chidori again, and it doesn't take this guy out, then I'm done, he said. The Uchiha had not wanted to confess that, but a part of him was worried that in the desperation of the moment, he might be tempted to do something that he would be punished for. Naruto nodded, not fully understanding but prepared to keep an eye on the fight. I'll be nearby, he promised before he turned to face Temari and Baki. The proctor raised an eyebrow. Hey kid, this is a jonin. You think you can keep the kunoichi busy? He asked. Naruto shrugged. Well, she certainly can't kill me, he taunted dryly, unable to resist a wry smirk. Hey Yugao-chan, he added. The Umbu tensed. Do not greet me casually, she hissed. Anko introduced us, she added to the proctor, who snorted at the confirmation that Anko was behind a genin knowing the name of an Umbu. It did raise the question of why Anko was doing it. Temari swung her fan. You think I can't? She snapped. Naruto wondered if what he was about to do was stupid but focused his chakra anyway before he punched the air. From the explosion of sound and pain, it had been a very stupid idea. What the fuck was that? Naruto's ears were ringing, but he still heard Temari distantly yell that. His blurred vision returned to clarity, and it looked like the feedback of his Kaomiai Supika interacting with the Futon no Jutsu left everyone in the stadium shell-shocked. So Naruto unfurled his scroll, pulled his Nokojiriboko from it and leaped at Baki. This is for that sickly proctor I didn't know very well, he gave as his war cry as he extended his blade and swung it at the jonin's left shoulder. Baki stepped back and flicked a two-fingered gesture at the mid-air blonde, whose momentum was halted by blades of wind carving open both his shoulders with sprays of blood. Naruto seemed surprised to fail to get the drop on a jonin. The next blade of wind cut a log in half. I don't think we met, the proctor said. Genmai Shirani, don't think I'll let you kill our genin, Suna, he taunted. Yugao stepped into the blind spot of the enemy, but he turned to her and made to move before she could lunge. Temari unfurled her fan to its furthest extent and ready to swing it. Naruto frowned from where he'd been put. That hurt, he told the Suna jonin blandly, giving away his position and startling the others into inaction with his reaction to the near-mortal injury. Hinata-chan just fixed this jacket for me too, he complained as his wounds slowly sealed shut, his damaged bandolier in his left hand. Anko and Kakashi landed on either side of him with Shunshin. The Konoha ninja noted with some alarm that Anko's pupils were slit. Hey, Naruto-kun, we need to, she began to mutter. Pull back with Anko-san, Kakashi ordered, assuming his interruption was what the kunoichi was about to suggest anyway. You too, Sasuke-kun, he ordered the Uchiha who was trying to force an opening against Gaara. I got this, Sasuke refused hotly, angered by the constant interruptions even though he was clearly having difficulty and growing tired. As if to deny him further, Gaara encased himself in an orb. Chidori can pierce that, the Uchiha assumed. Kakashi sighed. Sasuke-kun, please, this is an invasion. If you want to prove yourself, then go with Naruto-kun and Anko-san to help protect the civilians, he insisted. Naruto frowned. He was pretty sure he would be less safe with Anko, albeit in a different sense. Kaomiai Supika can deal with the sand. I can actually fight Gaara, he pointed out. I also learned Fuinjutsu from Jiraiya, so I can contain him too, he added. Damn it, I knew I should have focused on Sharingan Genjutsu, Sasuke growled to himself again with a shake of his head. Anko winced and grabbed her neck. Damn it, she growled, Kakashi-san, Orochimaru is fighting Hokage-sama in that purple box. She informed quickly. I checked it out before I came down here to get Naruto-kun, she confessed, and the Konoha Jonin were more surprised she'd come back for Naruto now that they knew Orochimaru was nearby. But the Umbu can't get in. I recognize that jutsu though. You could disrupt it by getting a genjutsu on one of the cornerstones. There has to be a weak link among them. She explained, sweat beading down her face. Naruto frowned at the way the woman was reacting to the pain of her Juinjutsu, Orochimaru's Juinjutsu. He didn't know why his blood helped, but Anko-chan, he said as he gestured to his shoulder, the bleeding had stopped but there was blood, you need some blood. He insisted. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Excuse you? He asked. The other ninja all halted momentarily at what the blonde genin had said. Uzumaki Kekkei Genkai, Naruto bluffed, not only do I heal fast, but my blood heals others and it makes Anko-chan not in pain when Orochimaru is around for some reason. He explained with a shrug, you really shouldn't drink it though, the Kyuubi did something to it. He lied, although likely not about the part where he suggested not drinking it. Kakashi supposed it did explain why Anko had slit pupils. Oddly, when she tasted Naruto's blood her eyes returned to normal, and she didn't seem to be in pain. Fuck, it's a goddamn panacea. She laughed. Alright, so I know he said we shouldn't drink it, and I am going to protect my meal ticket, Suna Ninja. She challenged confidently. Yugao sighed. Well, it's oddly less weird than what I thought was going on. She muttered, earning a light-hearted glare from the other purple-haired Kunoichi. Genma just shook his head. I was not ready for today, he muttered. So is that Gaara kid out of the fight? He asked. Temari shook her head. No, as soon as that orb drops you're all as good as dead. She informed casually. Her feet occasionally shuffled her a little further from the orb of sand Gaara was in. Sasuke rubbed his chin. Naruto, give me some of your blood. He demanded. He had a brilliant idea. Kakashi turned to glare at the Uchiha, knowing whatever idea he had was stupid. Naruto's cheeks turned pink. No way, nope, and never. He denied a little too vehemently. It's weird enough with Anko-chan doing it, but I'm definitely not letting a guy drink my blood, he refused. I just don't swing that way. He muttered, not mentioning that he might let Haku since no one but him even knew who that was. And now it sounds worse than I thought was going on, Yugao said dryly, her mask inclining towards Anko to level a glare through the eye holes. Baki mentally recovered enough to give orders. Temari, retreat, find Kankuro and leave. He ordered. That blonde genin just revealed he's a Jinchuriki. He explained with an eye twitch of his visible eye, Kyuubi no Yoko. Of course the Yondaime Hokage didn't kill it. He should have guessed. Oh, Temari muttered, so he's like Gaara but with blood instead of sand? She asked curiously. Naruto shrugged, not quite, but honestly close enough. He agreed lazily. Anko-san, are you in control of your faculties? Genma asked cautiously. Anko nodded with a wide grin. Her canines seemed longer. Oh yeah, more than ever. She agreed. Go on Kakashi, rescue Hokage-sama and put one of those Raikiri in that Orochibuka's chest for me. She insisted. I probably should not leave you alone with my students, Kakashi muttered. Genma-san, Nico-san. We won't. The two shinobi agreed without needing to even be asked. Anko pouted. I have done nothing wrong. She insisted. Naruto nodded. Yeah, her tongue feels nice. He commented, knowing well what effect his words would have but sick of being the only one who gets teased, before he turned to the orb of sand. So I guess I deal with Gaara when he comes out? He asked. Genma cast a glare at Anko. Even she had pink cheeks after that comment. Yeah, you're the Fuinjutsu expert I guess. He supposed. Naruto decided not to mention he knew exactly two Fuinjutsu and neither were good for dealing with Gaara, but he did have something else. He made more Kagebunshin, who surrounded the orb, weaved hand signs, and then placed a shimmering pale yellow sphere of chakra around the orb, Kekkai Kankin no Jutsu. The original intoned despite having only made the bunshin that performed the jutsu. Sasuke frowned. You're just going to lock him in there? He asked blandly. Only until he comes out. Naruto said with a shrug. My Kagebunshin have more chakra than most so I can do this ninjutsu solo technically. Usually it takes at least 3 ninja, ideally 4, but I can make like 6 Kage Bunshin do it because hexagons are stable or something. He explained, I don't really get what pounds by a square inches or really understand the math behind it, but without him bashing on it my Kage Bunshin will last about an hour, you know. Kakashi decided to take that opportunity to go help the Hokage. He knew the Sandaime was powerful, but letting Orochimaru's plan of attack go off without interference just seemed like a bad idea. Guy met up with him, and he explained the situation. Neither elite Jonin expected to see the Sandaime Hokage doing battle with the Shodai and Nidaime Hokage. I know we called him Shinobi no Kami in his prime, but still. The Hitaki muttered as he watched the aged Hokage fight against his 2 predecessor, his own sensei even. Guy nodded as they watched their esteemed leader fight alongside Enma, the monkey who transformed into an adamantine staff and was wielded as a weapon. The two watched as mortal blows were struck against the 2 seemingly resurrected Hokage. The injuries revealed naught but ash beneath that regenerated, and the scara were black. We think that Shodai-sama and Nidaime-sama are not truly in their prime. Thankfully enough, one Umbu spoke up. The charred corpse of another spoke of what happened to someone who tried to cross the purple barrier. Unfortunately, they have been dragged from the next life. They seem Fujimi. He warned. Kakashi closed his Sharingan eye. I see. So if I break down this barrier somehow we risk Shodai-sama and Nidaime-sama going on a rampage on Orochimaru's orders. He realized the problem immediately. The blue-armored and white-haired Nidaime Hokage was a master of Suiton no Jutsu. Even without his Raijin no Ken, the man was a devastating natural disaster in an urban environment with immense chakra that could conjure lakes. The red-armored and black-haired Shodai Hokage used the esoteric Mokuton no Jutsu. No Senju before or after had ever used it. Why the Shodai Hokage had it was an arcane mystery. Furthermore, the man had built the village. His ninjutsu grew the very forests around them. Both of them were walking natural disasters, appropriate for Kage. Kakashi watched the fight with his Sharingan for a moment. Do we have anyone who can match Shodai-sama's Mokuton? He asked. One Umbu nodded. I do not presume I could hold him for long, Kakashi Taicho, he confessed, and the Hitaki recalled the man working under him in his own Umbu days. But I think I might be able to stall him until Jiraiya-sama arrives, he said. Kakashi nodded. Good, then I'll stall Nidaime-sama while Sandaime-sama deals with that traitorous snake. He decided. Guy, back me up, would you? He requested. Guy nodded. I will do what I can, he said, prepared to open the Hashiman. If needed he would go all out, but he wouldn't risk it while they could win without it. Sasuke scowled as he left the arena. He didn't like leaving what was supposed to be his fight to Naruto, but the Jonin had been right. The situation had changed, and the Uchiha was the target of Orochimaru, so he should join up with the other genin and help them evacuate the wounded. The Uchiha spotted the group. Kurenai was helping Sakura move as Tenten helped Lee. Karen was calling out locations like a clock with north as 12. Sasuke felt a bit better knowing that Karen had a sensory ability. As he approached, Niji took out an Odo Chunin that was targeting Hinata, or perhaps the little girl Hyuga next to Hinata that the heiress seemed to be protecting. Uchiha-san, Niji greeted formally. Late again. He commented dryly, if you're still exhausted from fighting Gaara, then join the other non-combatants, he ordered. Sasuke glared at the insult. How many have you taken down? He asked as he mentally catalogued the directions Karen called out. 3 before you arrived, so that makes 4, and this Niji began as he tensed, but Sasuke focused his chakra and moved faster. The Uchiha palmed a kunai. Chidori was good but draining and not needed against common shinobi. Gaara was a different kind of beast. For regular Odo shinobi, Sasuke's kunai dug into the chest as he evaded the attempted counter-slice from the older ninja by reading his movements with the Sharingan. The young Uchiha twisted on his heel, reversed his grip on his kunai, and leaped at the next one. 2 kunai clashed, and Sasuke grabbed his opponent's wrist with his left hand for leverage and twisted to plant his feet on the older ninja's torso before piercing his wrist with his kunai, disarmed the man, and spun to swing both kunai as he dropped into a twist. The second man fell from cut tendons into the upward thrust of his own kunai from Sasuke, a brutal finisher, and the Uchiha followed up by twisting, spinning, and throwing the corpse at the third man before he leaped over that man and the fourth as he tossed the kunai at each of them. Sasuke ran through the hand signs before he landed on the ledge of the shop, Gokyaku no Jutsu. he declared before he unleashed exactly what the name implied. A great ball of fire engulfed the two standing Odo shinobi. There, now we're even, he said even as Karen was muttering something quietly to Tenten. The Uchiha was pretty sure Chidori was out of the question though, so he'd shove a kunai in Naruto if the blonde actually failed to deal with Gaara. Then a kunai flew over his shoulder thrown by Tenten and struck a Suna Chunin in the forehead. The man would likely be dead if not for his Hittite. He might still die when he finished foaming at the mouth for all Sasuke knew. I can't keep up with your testosterone competition, Tenten muttered in an irritated tone, but our mission is to protect and evacuate anyway. She snapped at the competitive genin. That was the last one for now, Karen said with a nervous glance around. Technically Jiraiya had snuck up on her once despite her ability, so she was worried about someone with that level of ability showing up and her not knowing. Kurenai nodded. The academy should be evacuating to a bunker not far from here. We'll meet up with them and reinforce their numbers, she ordered. Sakura knew it wasn't her fault, but she felt guilty that she couldn't help fight. Sasuke glanced at the Suna ninja with a kunai in his head and noted that yes, he did eventually stop twitching and die. Naruto stared at the orb of sand in the barrier his Bunshin had formed. So, what actually happens when Gaara finishes, whatever it is he's doing? The blonde asked curiously. Baki scowled, but the other Jonin had let Temari get away, so he was fine with talking a bit before the fighting began. Gaara is about to become something that only Kazekage-dano can stop, he explained vaguely, stalling for time. What is Shikaku? Naruto asked bluntly, curious about what he was up against. The lack of fear from the young blonde had the Suna Jonin on edge, but it surprised the Konoha Toka Jonin and Umbu as well. I heard Shikaku was a monk that became an Ikiryo after death, with power of the sands themselves. Our village has controlled him through Fuinjutsu for decades. Gaara is the latest Jinchuriki, he explained. Naruto nodded. Yeah, that's about what I thought, he said before he saw the ground ripple as the orb of sand started to expand. So, how big is this Shikaku? He asked. He'd fought one building-sized Bakemono already? Mountainous, Baki warned as he leaped backwards. Yugao and Genma gave chase as Anko intercepted an enemy disguised as Umbu going for Naruto. All the while the orb of sand that contained Gaara continued to expand until it hit the barrier. Then the barrier groaned under the strain. Ah, Naruto vocalized as the barrier shattered and the orb kept expanding. I feel like Ikiryo might be understating what I'm up against, he mused as he leaped back but didn't leave the arena like Baki had. The remaining shinobi who were present in the arena stands watched as the orb of sand reshaped into a massive tanuki with black Fuin markings all along its strange condensed sand body. Gaara's top half was sticking out of the head of the sand construct, and he made a single hand seal before his eyes rolled back and he fell unconscious. Golden eyes with star-shaped pupils and 4 dots around each pupil came to life. I'm awake. I'm free to rampage. Oh yeah, baby! Shikaku laughed maniacally as his sand started to gather up into the beginnings of a storm. Naruto was glad he had a squishy target in Gaara because Shikaku was roughly twice the size of the antler daiju he'd fought. Hey, Shikaku was it? Why do you want to rampage? He asked, mostly hoping to stall. Did a Ningen just question me? Shikaku asked, after Ningen kept me locked in a kettle? After Ningen used my powers for their own ends? A Ningen questions my right to rampage? Each question sounded more and more unhinged. Naruto supposed being locked up in Fuinjutsu for decades was bad for sanity. He felt a bit bad for the Kyuubi but focused his chakra and leaped. Sand rushed towards him, so he made a Kage Bunshin and turned himself into a Fuma Shuriken with henge. He trusted his own ability, and his Kage Bunshin did not disappoint. The chakra duplicate caught Naruto's shuriken form, twisted in midair, and threw the genin at Gaara with an arcing curve to the flight path. Sand rushed to meet and intercept. Naruto returned to his natural form and kicked off the sand towards Gaara with another burst of chakra. Naruto cocked back his left fist as more sand intercepted him and swung a haymaker at the sleeping auburn-haired boy. The Kyomi-ai Supaka chimed loudly and the sand holding the blonde back wavered. What the dash? Shikaku muttered, cut that out. He groaned and the sand rushed to crush the offending blonde. Naruto reared his left arm back and swung again, and again the Kyomi-ai Supaka chimed loudly. The sand wavered and the blonde prepared another punch. launching it as the sand rushed to meet him again. But his fourth attempt failed as Gaara's eyes opened and Shikaku's form crumbled so the blonde lost his footing. The shinobi in the stands watched in stunned silence as the two genin fell onto a pile of sand, but Gaara was clearly out of it and lacking control. Go Naruto-kun! Enko cheered with a wide grin. The blonde in question stood with little issue. But before the blonde could charge his opponent, the purple box containing the battle between the Sandaime Hokage and Orochimaru fell, and a forest broke loose. The fighting in the stands halted again, and Naruto blinked at the rapidly growing forest. Now what? Chapter 23 Licking Wounds. Kakashi found the weak link among the 4 Odo shinobi that made the barrier, a large teenage male, large in both height and weight, with tan skin and an orange mohawk. Genjutsu wasn't even required, the Sharingan allowed basic hypnosis with eye contact. The difference being Genjutsu was based on chakra and observation, while hypnotism was, in a few words, intelligence and willpower. The orange-haired rotund young man was particularly weak to it. Unfortunately, the enemy realized what was happening and the attack plan of the Konoha shinobi trying to back up their Sandaime Hokage went wrong as soon as contact was made with the enemy. A 6-armed young man attacked Kakashi immediately, stalling his attempt to attack the Nidaime. Guy was stalled by a young man with silver hair and green lipstick. At least Kakashi thought it was a young man, hard to tell at that age. Worst of all, a young woman with dark pink hair, not much older than Tenten from the looks of it, completely held off the remaining Umbu from helping the Sandaime with the Shodai or Orochimaru using a flute to weave genjutsu over them. Even if these 3 had only stalled them, which was what happened so far, that was a tide changer. Shodai Dano, remove the pests. Orochimaru ordered smugly, and the Shodai Hokage, free of the barrier that once fettered his abilities, clasped his hands together in the snake's sign, almost as if in prayer, and the forest on the roof expanded to attack the Konoha shinobi. The Umbu broke the genjutsu, but one was too slow and the Odo Kunoichi with dark pink hair took him out of the fight with a punch to the head. Whether he was dead or unconscious was difficult to tell in the chaos of battle, so his allies could only think of him as down and out lest they risk leaving themselves open in order to help him. The Sandaime leaped at the Shodai and swung a large adamantium staff. The Monkey King transformed into a weapon, crashed through Mokuton defense, and forced the Shodai to halt the advance of his growing forest. In a puff of smoke, Enma, the Enku himself, appeared wearing a black suit over mesh armor and a tiger print sleeveless kimono on top tied with a red sash to engage the Shodai Hokage in taijutsu to stall him. Hiruzen then leaped at Orochimaru as the pale-skinned traitor brandished a Tsurugi, Kage's shuriken no jutsu. He declared and threw a volley of shuriken that became a hail of steel, only for his target to dissolve into mud. The building across from them collapsed under the weight of a giant toad and a giant snake clashing, writhing around each other with the toad keeping an edge by using a sectioned staff to hold the natural weapons of the serpent at bay. Above them, Jiraiya and Orochimaru engaged briefly in taijutsu before the golden-eyed pale Sannin kicked off his former teammate to force some distance. Jirobo, get up, you fat useless bitch. Wadash? Tairuya-san, girls shouldn't talk like that. Shut your flabby jowls. We need to go. Kakashi glanced with surprise that the Odo Kunoichi had recovered her fallen ally so quickly, but at the cost of allowing the Umbu to assist Enma with the Shodai, and to the shock of quite a few onlookers. Mokuton met Mokuton. Orochimaru's eyes widened with delight. Oh, you kept that experiment. Marvelous. He praised before he chuckled. The difference in ability is obvious even if Shodai Dano is diminished a tad. He mused, and it was true, the Umbu's Mokuton seemed less alive, less natural, more rigid, and as the 2 chakra-animated forests wrestled, an odd sight to the watching shinobi, it was clear that the Shodai's was stronger. Kakashi caught sight of Guy losing ground against the Nidaime and moved to assist against the white-haired and blue-armored Hokage. He saw the hand signs being weaved but knew matching them without a source of water was pointless, so he planned to use a Katon no Jutsu instead. Unfortunately, the Hatake was interrupted by webbing that caught him to the roof, and he narrowly avoided being mortally wounded by thrown weaponry that seemed to be made of similar webbing. A kunai dug into the back of his left shoulder, and 2 more went down his back alarmingly close to his heart and spine. He turned back to see the Odo shinobi joining Orochimaru, except for the large one named Jirobu. The orange-haired young man performed what could only be described as a sumo stomp as Guy dodged the Suryudan no Jutsu from the Naidame Hokage. The building cracked, the shinobi standing or still fighting evacuated, and Guy scrambled to rescue Kakashi. From the arena Naruto could see some of the fight, not a lot but enough to learn that Jiraiya had arrived. Judging from the toad, Orochimaru was up there, judging from the snake, and that someone could grow a forest. The blonde was pretty sure that feat was supposed to be unique to the Shodai Hokage. Seeing a forest fall because the building it was rooted to crumbled stirred the shinobi in the stands into action. Baki noticed a lack of any signs of a particular fighter among the Kage and glanced around to see the Konoha shinobi surrounding him. As far as he could tell, Amagekyo no Sato's shinobi had all retreat, not that he blamed them, but his own forces had been pushed back. The Suna Jonin glanced down to see Gaara was struggling to stand. Temari was trying to get to him and Shikamaru was trying to stop her. He'd lost sight of Kankuro in the chaos. "I surrender," he said as he raised his arms. "The remaining Suna forces will obey me unless Kazekage-sama overrules me, but I have the suspicion that won't be an issue," he finished darkly. Despite wearing a mask, Yugao still looked ready to kill the slippery Jonin, but Asuma put a hand on her shoulder. "We'll take prisoners," he ordered, knowing his father wouldn't want them to execute enemy who were in the process of surrender. Genma nodded and rushed to assist the Sandaime Hokage. He made a subtle hand sign to Yugao as he left, who nodded. Naruto saw Kankuro enter the arena and collapse. He saw Shino enter and collapse a moment after him, and wondered what that was about. "Naruto!" Enko called out as she held off an enemy dressed like Konoha Umbu. "Capture Jie," she began to order, but her opponent's left hand on her left wrist glowed and she lost muscle control. Her guard dropped, and a kunai lodged deep into her left shoulder. Naruto ignored Temari rushing Gaara. He ignored the blasts of wind she sent at him as he avoided them by sprinting at Enko and the enemy shinobi that hurt her. The blonde could see that the Suna Kunoichi was terrified of him. As his Kage Bunshin popped outside and around the arena, he got glimpses and impressions of odd expressions from Konoha ninja he'd helped and terrified expressions from invading shinobi he'd helped capture. Enko's right hand lifted up to try and hold the kunai, but her opponent pulled away with a sudden yank and her blood sprayed out, a bit more than she was comfortable losing, and she tried to stem the flow. Naruto leaped and swung his Nokojiriboko, the cleaving edge aimed for his target's left shoulder in vengeance. An elbow struck Naruto's diaphragm when his target moved to counter him. "Being airborne limits your ability to evade damage, even if you could keep up with me," a familiar voice lectured before the disguised enemy lodged his kunai in Naruto's chest and made to disarm him of the Nokojiriboko. Asuma and Yugao both leaped at the enemy shinobi as Naruto swung his left fist in a hook. The enemy dodged back, but a high-pitched chime rang out and the mask cracked. Naruto staggered away from his opponent with his grip still on his Nokojiriboko as the mask dropped. Kabuto staggered back with cracked glasses, a furious expression, and blood dripping down his ear. Naruto-kun, don't, Enko tried to warn, but the blonde genin ripped the kunai out of his chest and threw it at Kabuto before he fell back to be caught by the purple-haired Tokujonin. Asuma nearly took Kabuto's head off as the supposed genin dodged the returned kunai, but the young man displayed abilities far exceeding what he did in the Chunin exams as he evaded the jonin, and even used Kawarimi no Jutsu as Yugao tried to stab him from behind. Naruto looked around for his bandolier as he felt weak, unable to stand, lightheaded, and the most telltale sign of all he was dying was that he was losing consciousness. "I need my scroll, the one with the cross," he muttered. "Take some of my spilled blood to heal, get it for me," he requested. Enko shook as she felt blood loss hitting her too. "Shit, where?" she asked as she looked around. She felt as though her heart dropped into her stomach when the blonde genin shrugged helplessly in her grip. "I hope this works," she muttered as she lifted her left hand, wet with Naruto's blood. The Tokubetsu jonin paid no heed to the way some of the blood dripped into her open wound, or the look of disgust on Asuma's face that was no doubt mirrored on Yugao's as the two approached to assist. Because it worked, her wound sealed shut. Enko looked around again for the scroll he was talking about, but the sand was still everywhere. She wasn't even sure where his bandolier had landed amidst the chaos or when he dropped it. "Shit," Enko muttered. "Naruto-kun, stay with me," she ordered Yugao. "Find his bandolier." He said something about a scroll with a cross on it. she informed, and the Umbu nodded stiffly and moved. Asuma frowned. I need to back up the others with that, he said with a gesture towards where the biggest fight was. Trees and torrents of water collided with pillars of flame and earthen walls. A giant toad was still grappling with a giant snake. Keep the hero of the hour alive for us, he ordered. Anko nodded as Asuma left, and to her surprise the blonde was not quite fading as fast as she would expect from a sucking chest wound. It even seemed to be slowly sealing shut. As the purple-haired Kunoichi wondered at Naruto's supernatural vitality, the cat-masked Umbu returned with his damaged bandolier, scroll already in hand. Naruto reached for it, but Yugao unfurled it, and revealed the few in array. Then she pulled out the contents in a puff of smoke. What? She asked. Even with a mask on, it was obvious she was confused. Anko didn't get it either. They seemed to be vials of blood, like syringes with no plunger. Just give it here, Naruto groaned, reaching for the vials. Yugao handed the 3 vials over and watched as the blonde jammed one right into his chest, the blood suctioned through the needle and into his body. Before the eyes of the Kunoichi, Naruto's cheeks regained some color, and his wound healed faster. All right, now what? He asked. What? Yugao repeated. She shook her head. Do you dash? Are you thinking you're still going to be fit to fight? She asked incredulously. Naruto nodded. I'm all healed. He pointed out, I recover fast. He added. Yugao's body language was fuming. Anko-san, get him to a medical tent with the others who evacuated. You two need to rest. She insisted. The Tokujonin being addressed nodded. Naruto frowned. I can still fight. He insisted. I'm Uzumaki and a Jinchuriki. I'm basically made for this. He pointed out. The body and mind still need rest, Yugao hissed. I saw how exhaustion affects your healing factor just now. I do not know why that red elixir, she didn't want to think of it as blood, reinvigorated you, but you still need to go rest, eat, and be ready if we need more reinforcements since you are apparently a one-genin army. She insisted, putting her foot down. Yes, Okuzen. Naruto agreed without thinking of his term of address for the Umbu Kunoichi, mostly because he was a little intimidated and unsure how to react to such nonviolent and caring aggression. The praise also threw him on the back foot, but he noticed he received some already through his Kage Bunshin that he had yet to mentally process. Yugao's reaction to his choice of words was to leave without comment as Anko giggled, but once she was gone the remaining purple-haired Kunoichi tentatively touched her left shoulder, so that was a bit more intense than usual. She muttered, I think I got some of your blood in my wound. She added tiredly, she knew she was supposed to get the genin to safety, but even after being healed she just didn't have much stamina left, and she ended up leaning against the blonde boy, which of course resulted in neither of them getting up. Naruto tensed. While it was nice to be held by the older woman, what she said was very concerning. We should move, he said. He wanted to discuss it with Karen. Maybe even explain what had happened to the red-haired Uzumaki a bit better, and get her medical opinion on things, like the fact he might have just made Anko immortal. The woman groaned. I don't want to get up, she complained. Naruto sighed as he saw a pair of Chunin and a man who looked like Shino Aburame's father pick up Kankuro and Shino. Come on, Anko-chan, time to get up, he said like he was talking to a child, and stood up to support the woman on his back. Anko blinked owlishly. Wow, you are stronger than you look, she commented. I didn't know your muscles were this hard under your clothes. She added approvingly, and the blonde blushed as he supported the dazed Kunoichi out of the arena. 2 blonde ninja met at an exit. The Kunoichi had been moving quietly and carefully, but Naruto had just carried Anko to the nearest exit, so both he and Temari were surprised to cross paths already. Gaara and the blonde Suna Kunoichi both looked terrified. It was jarring seeing the auburn-haired boy looking like such a frightened child. Temari steeled herself. Get back, she warned, trying to seem intimidating, but her knees were shaking. Naruto frowned as just how terrifying he was to come. A ninja finally hit him. He met Gaara's eyes and realized what had happened. They're scared of you too, huh? Naruto asked Gaara. I guess I could have turned out like you too. A little push was probably all it took, right? He asked. Anko frowned. Her head was swimming and her vision blurred. She could barely understand the blonde carrying her. Temari, on the other hand, understood perfectly but remained quiet as she watched Gaara, her younger brother, nervously. Gaara began but bit his lip. Otosan ordered my assassination, a lot. He confessed, killing is the only way to prove my existence, so why aren't you killing me? He asked. Naruto frowned as the eyes of the other genin, completely lost, looked to him for answers or guidance. I'm not like you, he said, and the other boy's eyes widened. We're both Jinchuriki, both genin, both pretty young, and both scary and dangerous. He pointed out, you gave up though, you're scared of what you are, of everyone around you. I guess it makes sense, that would be the sane thing to do, you know. He continued as he cocked his head to the side. I'm not scared of you though. I have a weapon that can deal with you and the ability to use it against you. You're beaten, and now I can see you aren't a Yaju. Yaja lash out, and their death throes can still hurt. You're just a scared kid, otherwise you would have just killed her when she tried to rescue you. Temari stared at the other blonde in shock as he verbally tore her sibling to shreds. She winced at the final phrase due to the fact that was a fear she'd held, but the auburn-haired boy merely nodded dumbly at the end of it. Temari nay. He addressed the kunoichi suddenly. Sorry about everything. He apologized. Can we go home? Oh no, Anko spoke up, her speech slightly slurred. None of that, you're prisoners now. She insisted. We won't kill you, but we need to get to the bottom of this attack on our home. She growled with narrowed eyes. Temari cast a worried glance at the brother she was carrying away. She felt bad for leaving Kankuro, but she knew Kankuro was mentally sound enough to take care of himself. Gaara, however, just nodded. That's fair, he agreed to the surprise of his sister. Will come quietly? He phrased it as a question as he looked to the blonde kunoichi. Temari was not used to Gaara of all people looking to her for guidance, but she saw more Konoha shinobi on the approach and nodded. Yeah. We don't really have room to argue with that demand, she acknowledged tiredly. The fight against Orochimaru was not going well. The man and his 4 Odo shinobi were on the retreat with the Shodai and Nidaime Hokage covering for him. Jiraiya and Hiruzen tried to corner the Serpentine man, pincer him between their attacks by forcing the traitor to dodge into one attack with the other. It almost seemed to work. A spike of stone went through the man as the makeshift and artificial Mokuton of the Umbu barely held back the more natural Mokuton of the undead Shodai from killing the Sandaime. Then Orochimaru burst from his own mouth, fully restored and holding his Kusanagi no Tsurugi. Hiruzen was armored for this fight, not dressed in robes but his old war gear. But his guard could not withstand a weapon like that, and the blade cut deep before Kakashi could interfere. The Jonin's Raikiri struck true to deliver his right hand through Orochimaru's back, but the Kusanagi went through his wrist, and the Serpentine man bonelessly leaned back. Kakashi-kun, joining in with us as rank combatants? Orochimaru asked casually before vomiting himself up. His new left hand gripped the horrified Kakashi's face as his right hand disarmed his old body of Kusanagi, and pulled it up. Jiraiya halted what would be a mortal wound by forcing Orochimaru to defend against a lion made of chakra-infused hair that slammed into the guard of the Serpentine man, his sword halting most of the damage, but not stopping him from getting knocked up and over the Sandaime where he landed on a tree branch. Well, I've had my fill for now, Orochimaru decided. I'll retreat, and return to crush Konohagakure no Sato once your injured have bled out from today's wounds. He declared with a mocking smirk, and the Konoha shinobi all cast worried glances to the Sandaime Hokage. The Kusanagi was said to be poisonous, but to what degree was unknown. Kakashi's wrist burned, which concerned the Jonin himself even further. You think we'll let you get away? He asked. Orochimaru smirked. Let me? He asked rhetorically. Nidaime Dano, hold them off to your best ability. He ordered. Shodai Dano, come with me. We'll return once I've run further tests and some fruit is more ripe. He continued as he turned to leave. The Konoha shinobi made to intercept, but the Nidaime sighed. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. He said it more as a warning than a declaration, and from the cloud of smoke each Konoha Jonin, an Umbu who attempted to back up the Sandaime, was forced to fight against an unfettered Nidaime Hokage. If any of you can confine me for long enough to bind me with Fuinjutsu, do it. The white-haired Hokage ordered. I'm not in my prime, so I can't do anything against the control Orochimaru has over me, but I am still Nidaime Hokage, Tobarama Senju. He continued proudly as he weaved hand signs while the Konoha Jonin managed to dispel their attack. Prove you can stand against me diminished as I am, or perish. This Kenjutsu used to revive me, Edo Tensei, is not easily undone. My stamina will be limitless, and mortal injuries mean nothing to me," he warned before he unleashed another Suryudan no Jutsu from thin air. Hiruzen intercepted with the Dorihiki no Jutsu, but that didn't get rid of the water that the Nidame conjured with pure chakra. "Tobirama-sensei certainly feels as powerful as I remember," he grumbled. Jiraiya bit open his right thumb. "Think you can stall him for a little bit?" he asked as he weaved hand signs. Hiruzen shook his head. "Jiraiya, I am spent. I'm afraid you may have to face him alone while the Jonin and Umbu protect our home from his Kage Bunshin," he pointed out. Enma landed beside them. "I still have some stamina, but I cannot guarantee how long I will last before I am returned," he warned, reminding them he was there via Hiruzen's Kuchios no Jutsu. Jiraiya sighed. "Figures, he guessed as much. Kuchios no Jutsu," he said, and there was a pair of toads, Fukasaku and another that Hiruzen vaguely recognized as the wife of the Myobokuzen no Kushira from her purple markings and warty head. "This is going to be ugly, Fukasaku Jiji, Shimabachan. We're up against the Nidame Hokage himself revived by Kinjutsu," he warned as he altered his makeup. Fukasaku frowned. "Orochimaru, I presume?" he asked, and Jiraiya nodded. "So, no messing about for this one then?" he asked, and the Sennin nodded again. Shima hopped up first onto the Sannin's left shoulder. "Well, oh dear, Tobirama Senju, wasn't it? I heard he's quite dangerous," she mused as Fukasaku joined her on the right shoulder. "It's getting close to supper though, too, San. This won't do at all," she huffed with a shake of her head. Fukasaku hummed. "Well, we'll just have to go all out so I can get back and enjoy your cooking, Kazan," he decided, as if it really was that simple. The Jonin and Umbu all realized they were about to witness Senjutsu firsthand. Before that, though, Enma displayed that he was capable of the shinobi arts as well, surprisingly using a basic Bunshin no Jutsu of all things to close the gap between himself and Tobirama. It almost seemed like an after-image with the way Enma used it, and such an optical illusion was likely intentional. The Nidame Hokage palmed a kunai as he clashed with the Enku. Tobirama tried to get his blade past the guard and through the armor of Enma, but ended up with his right wrist grabbed by his opponent's left foot. Then, in a display of inhuman acrobatics, the Nidame Hokage was flipped and slammed through the snaking root of a tree left behind by the Shodai's ninjutsu. Then a second Tobirama, a Kage Bunshin, slid a kunai into his back with the force of a body tackle behind it. Enma's eyes widened, but before he could so much as exhale his pain, he returned from where he was called by the Sandame's Kuchios no Jutsu. Credit to Enmadano, the Nidame on the ground spoke respectfully. "Even in his old age he broke my back," he said before he stretched out and hopped to his feet. "Unfortunately, that won't be enough to deal with Edo Tensei." Kakashi saw the hand signs and his eyes widened in alarm. "That's dash." He didn't bother continuing and began hand signs of his own. "Doton, Dorihiki no Jutsu," he declared. Technically earth chakra beat water chakra, but ninjutsu the Nidame Hokage used was like conjuring a lake and using the water as a mallet. Even with other Jonin and Umbu joining in, Hiruzen himself adding a Dorihiki despite his exhaustion, and the Mokutan using Umbu creating wooden lattices to reinforce their attempts, the Konoha forces would still have to deal with more destroyed buildings and a flooded district. Ginma and Asuma arrived in a blur of speed indicative of Shunshin, both already weaving hand signs. Guy prepared to back them up as he caught his breath. Then Ginma unleashed a Karyudan no Jutsu that was enhanced into a Grand Dragon of an Inferno by Asuma's Daitapa no Jutsu. "Suetun," Tobirama responded as he weaved hand signs. "Suijin Hiki," he intoned before he unleashed a gout of water from his mouth at high pressure into the water he'd already created, and his chakra, molded by his hand seals, did the rest and formed a wall of water that turned to steam. Impressive combination. My defense would have left me too badly scalded by the steam to continue were I still alive," the Nidame praised. Being praised by a legend lost some of its punch when said legend was so casually dealing with them. The Jonin all got a better appreciation for the Sandaime Hokage for being able to survive against both the Shodai and Nidame Hokage while fending off Orochimaru. Guy was ready to jump into close quarters, but there was no need. Jiraiya finally finished gathering the energy he needed. Tobirama seemed to dodge the initial punch, but was launched back into a wall as though struck anyway. "Senjutsu." The Nidame acknowledged. "Good, you should be able to defeat me and protect Konohagakure no Sato then," he said approvingly. The watching Jonin noticed the changes Jiraiya had gone through. It was hard not to. With toad-like eyes, warts, and his pierced nose becoming far more bulbous, he looked like a hybrid of man and toad. He didn't retort verbally and instead made to sweep the legs of the Nidaime with his right leg. Tobirama hopped over the sweep, but as before an invisible force struck him anyway, ripping his legs out from under him, and while he was horizontal Jiraiya spun and delivered a vicious axe kick. However, he lifted his foot off a splintered log when the smoke cleared. The Nidaime made to attack from behind, but without looking the Sannin delivered an elbow to the face. With the first direct hit, Tobirama felt the full force of Senjutsu-enhanced taijutsu. Then a backhand that missed his backward swaying head unleashed a force that struck him aside and through the wall of an urn store. Shima clasped her webbed hands and started humming. Tobirama's head span and his vision became a bit too psychedelic for his comfort. Jiraiya took this opportunity to make the bird then snake seal as Fukasaku began a string of hand signs before the Sannin crouched, planted his hands to the ground, and flowed his chakra into the earth as Doton. The ground rose up before the Nidaime could dodge and trapped him. Then Fukasaku spat oil and made an odd hand sign not even Hiruzen recognized. "Fuin," the Kushira declared. "I can't move, but I can talk." Tobirama acknowledged. "Interesting solution. Can you move me to a convenient location?" he asked. He was technically still in the urn store. "How long will that oil last?" Jiraiya asked. "Stop-gap measure, but it'll hold for a few hours at least, and I can reapply it until we find a way to undo this Edo Tensei," Fukasaku grumbled. Tobirama frowned. "Oh, well," he began, "that may be awkward." He mused. "I invented this kinjutsu, so I know the only way to undo the jutsu is to have the practitioner perform a set of hand signs. So killing Orochimaru would only free me from his control and allow me to do it myself, but I'd have to teach Kyodai," he explained. Fukasaku didn't blink. "You invented this?" he asked, visibly and audibly affronted. "I sought a way to overcome death," Tobirama confessed. "No method I found was worth the cost, so I abandoned the search and met Shinigami-sama on the field of battle willingly." He explained proudly. "I suppose some scoundrel unlocking my secrets and dragging me back from my honorable death could be called my punishment for having invented it." He mused. Yugao dropped down on the flooded street, standing on the surface of the water while most of the jonin who had been present just accepted the ankle-deep hindrance. "Evacuations are mostly complete. Odo forces are retreating and Suna forces have surrendered," she reported. Genma frowned since something about the Umbu being there bothered him. Then he realized what it actually was. "Nico-san," he began, "who is currently with Naruto Uzumaki?" he asked. Hiruzen and Jiraiya both frowned with concern. Yugao was silent and still for a moment. "Anko Mitarashi," she confessed quietly. "Kakashi was gone as quickly as he could mold the chakra for Shunshin." Naruto glared at Niji as Iruka helped Anko into a cot. Since the woman seemed fairly out of it, "Don't fall asleep here, Anko-chan," the blonde warned quietly, which just confused the woman more. He felt guilty. He was still hiding it, and now someone else was involved on top of that. But he had to deal with something. "Niji, apologize to Hinata-chan," he insisted. Niji rolled his eyes. "I stand by my words. She is too weak to be a chunin, and remaining a genin her entire life is shameful. Her mentality is ill-fit for the shinobi lifestyle. It is a cruelty for her to struggle," he insisted. "That's not your choice to make." Naruto snapped and bared his teeth. The Hyuga boy took a subconscious step back as those watching the exchange noticed how Naruto's canines were longer than normal. "Hinata-chan wants to try, so let her try her best. Your family, so shouldn't you support her, you know?" he asked. Karen nodded. Without even knowing Naruto very well, she'd wanted to support him once she realized they probably really were family. Niji, however, just sighed. "Fine," he began and removed his hitai to reveal bandages, which he pulled away to reveal a manji in the center of his forehead flanked by two hooks that wrapped around his temples and under his hairline. This Juinjutsu allows main house Hyuga to torture and kill branch house Hyuga. All for the sake of protecting the dojutsu, he explained bitterly. Naruto frowned and cocked his head to the side. "So why antagonize and mentally torture literally one of the only people who could kill you with one jutsu regardless of what you can do?" he asked blithely. "Were you hoping to force her to kill you or something?" Nijisai twitched. No, I knew she would not. He insisted. Okay, but wouldn't the current head of your clan want to kill you if he found out how you treated her? Naruto asked. So far he just thought Niji was stupid. Hayashi-sama has practically given up on Hinata-sama, Niji revealed with a casual shrug as he crossed his arms. Naruto was very still for a moment, then his killing intent leaked out with his exhale before he inhaled and took control of himself. Apologize to Hinata-chan or I'll prank you for the rest of your life. I have Kage Bunshin, I can make the time to follow through. He threatened as he crossed his own arms. I'm not just going to change my philosophy because you were fated to win the day. Niji refused stubbornly. I didn't win because of fate, you ass. I beat you because I thought ahead and developed a strategy to counter your main strength. Naruto exclaimed angrily, you're the overconfident jackass who didn't think to develop any long-range attacks. You didn't even try to throw shuriken back. He lectured. The other rookie genin were surprised that the blonde of all people was being so smart about thinking back over the fight. Iruka decided he should interrupt, and he felt his concern was pressing enough to warrant it. Why aren't these two captives cuffed? He asked nervously. Gaara looked down and cuffed himself with sand. Temari was perfectly still. I've been paranoid that if I move someone will kill me, she confessed. A closer look revealed sweat dripping down her neck. Naruto shrugged. It seemed redundant. He informed, they're both pretty soundly beaten. He pointed out. Sasuke glared at Gaara. I saw a massive tanuki. How did you deal with that? He asked. Naruto shrugged. I panicked and just hit Gaara with sound waves until it went away. He explained. The auburn-haired boy winced. Baki, who actually was shackled, spoke up. Shikaku takes control whenever Gaara sleeps, so your efforts woke him up. He explained, to think, a weapon that ignores his defenses and can force him awake like an alarm clock. He muttered, baffled. The solution to Gaara's rampages was effectively a gauntlet that amplified sound somehow, wielded by Konoha's Jinchuriki no less. Oh, what now? Tenten exclaimed. Oh yeah, your cell never actually heard about that. Naruto recalled, Chakra no Bakemono can't die, so Yandame locked Kyubi no Kitsune in my Kirakukia with Fuinjutsu. He explained, I should really learn more Fuinjutsu. He added as he recalled the paper tags he'd been given that could teleport him to the last location he dreamed without actually dreaming. Niji frowned. Wait a minute, he muttered, I was the underdog all along. He realized with a hint of indignation. You were not. Shut up. Naruto denied angrily. Enko groaned as she sat up. I think I'm gonna throw up. She complained, and Naruto frowned because he hadn't quite had that reaction to the blood. Probably, Kakashi began as he entered the tent that was, for some reason, housing prisoners and wounded, because Naruto-kun's blood has unknown side effects. He pointed out. Karen sighed. How much did you give her? She asked, not trusting the woman to answer honestly. A couple of sips, Naruto said stiffly. Some probably got in the wound she had. He pointed out. Wound? Karen asked. I didn't notice, I thought she just got splattered a bit, she confessed with all of her medical concern coming through. What happened? Kabuto stabbed her, then me. My blood healed us. Naruto answered with a shrug, since that cat was out of the bag. Why are we not using Naruto's blood to heal more people? Niji asked with a raised eyebrow. Kitsune messed with the Uzumaki Kekkai Genkai, Naruto lied, so think of Enko-chan as a willing test subject. He said, and the woman looked like she wanted to dry heave. Ugh, the come down is so much worse the more blood there is, but I still say that's worth it. Enko said firmly. I wouldn't recommend it though, I just need it because of a medical condition. She said smugly, Karen-chan knows the details, confidentiality or whatever. She finished dismissively. You recovered quickly. Kakashi muttered. He noted that the symptoms were not like an alcohol hangover despite what they seemed at first glance. I volunteer, Lee exclaimed eagerly with his unbroken arm in the air. Naruto winced. No, I'm barely okay with testing it on Enko-chan, he confessed. Karen sighed. Lee-kun, I'm sorry, but I don't think Uzumaki blood could actually help your injury. I saw the charts. She said the last part meaningfully. The bushy-eyebrowed boy frowned sadly. Yuga pulled open the flap of the tent, mask still on. I'm to transfer the prisoners to Ibiki-san, Anko Mitarashi, Kakashi Hataki, and Naruto Uzumaki are to report to Hokage-sama in his office in the tower. She explained shortly before she gestured for the particularly valuable prisoners to come with her. Naruto was not sure what he expected, but the Sandaime Hokage having his own medical cot set up behind his desk while Area Ninja fussed over floor placement and equipment readings the blonde couldn't understand was not on the list. The Nidaime Hokage just being there, tied to a chair with rope that had few injutsu tags along the knotted length, was another shock to the system. Asuma and Shikamaru were there too, as was a man that Naruto could only assume was the Nara Patriarch since he looked like an older and more tired Shikamaru with scars on his face. Makes sense, I suppose. Shikamaru muttered as if he already knew what was going on. Naruto Uzumaki and Shikamaru Nara, Hiruzen began gruffly, for your efforts during the Chunin selection examinations as well as in recognition for your contributions to the protection of Konohagakure no Sato today, I promote both of you to Chunin. As the Sandaime said this, Asuma presented Shikamaru with a flak vest and Kakashi handed one to Naruto. In the wake of this attack we must put forth an air of strength. You two will be trusted to lead your generation from here, he said solemnly before he focused on Naruto. While Shikamaru-kun is assisting with leading genin in D ranks to help clean up and rebuild, however, I would send Naruto-kun on a mission with Jiraiya to find my other wayward student, far less treacherous, he explained. Anko frowned. Hokage-sama, I would volunteer to go too, she insisted. Jiraiya stepped up out of the shadows behind the Tokubetsu Jonin. Yes, I'm sure we'd love to have you along, he said, almost pleasantly if not for his lecherous tone. You really want to flirt with me? Anko asked in a faux demure tone. Naruto-kun protect me from the lecherous old man, she joked with a smirk. Jiraiya frowned. Well, my presense isn't enough to deter her, but I think I heard a little about your reason for wanting to come with us, and I can't say I think it's a good one, he explained as he crossed his arms and approached the Hokage's desk. On that note, I want to take this opportunity to take Naruto Uzumaki as my apprentice, he said firmly. Anko frowned, but she began to protest. Anko, Hiruzen interrupted, you may still work with Naruto-kun, but the immediate threat of Orochimaru in the village is gone. We need to bolster our forces and a small team needs to leave swiftly to return Tsunade Senju to Konohagakure no Sato, he explained. I in particular am in need of her assistance, he finished gravely. Chapter 24. Learning lots from the new sensei. Naruto wasn't sure if he liked that Anko didn't meet up with him and Karen after the Hokage dismissed them, nor did he particularly like not knowing what was going on with the prisoners. He had one night to rest, but he was more curious about questioning the Nidaime Hokage about certain things. But it seemed like the Sandaime and Nidaime were going to be catching up, so he relented to the dismissal. The blonde definitely didn't like that he had lost track of the Amigakure ninja. He wasn't tired and he saw some ninja moving debris, so he made Kage Bunshin and approached to help. So what happened with the AIM delegation? He asked. The ninja that the blonde was helping personally gave him an odd look. The man was old, likely as old as Danzo or Hiruzen. I heard they booked it. Can't blame them, I suppose. They need to report this to their home, the old ninja said as they carried a ruined plank of waterlogged support beam to a bin that had been set up for such things. You're that Naruto Uzumaki? You made Chunin then, the man commented, having noticed the flak vest. I'm still genin myself. Naruto almost faltered his stride at those words. I'm sorry? The old man laughed. Nothing to do with you, youngster. You fought admirably to protect our home and proved yourself in those examinations, he acknowledged. Naruto blinked olishly as they deposited the wood in the bin, his Kage Bunshin doing the same with similar pieces of debris. The blonde had experienced being appreciated as a hero in Nami no Kuni, of being acknowledged as strong in Takigakure no Sato, but experiencing it in his own home was another matter entirely. The two parted ways and Naruto noticed he was far less ignored than he used to be on his way to check on Ichiraku Ramen. Most of the civilians just seemed curious about something they'd heard but not experienced, while the shinobi were actually acknowledging him. The blonde Uzumaki was floored, and to top it off Ichiraku was undamaged, but not open as the man in question was helping mop up neighboring stalls down the street that had been less lucky. Naruto wanted ramen, so he made a group of 20 Kage Bunshin and set them to work. 15 minutes later and Naruto was savoring his first bowl of ramen for the night. "Thanks for the help, kid, those folks sell good eggs," he said with a chuckle. A shame even this wasn't enough to get an exclusive deal on them. He joked, he hadn't even asked really. Naruto shrugged, "I just wanted ramen to be honest," he confessed shamelessly, and Tsuchi laughed as he prepared another bowl, knowing the blonde wouldn't take long to get through the first. It wasn't until Naruto was back in his apartment resting in the dream when the doll informed him of a visitor, and he returned to the waking world to see Anko entering his front door brazenly. "How did you get in?" he asked with a raised eyebrow. "Pick the lock," Anko answered smugly, but her demeanor faded quickly into a morose frown. "I asked Hokage-sama if I could take you as my apprentice," she said as she closed the door. Naruto wasn't sure how to take that. He was still processing everything else, like Jiraiya taking him as an apprentice. "Why?" he asked. "No one cared about me before. I guess just being strong is enough for people to respect you." Anko frowned. "Well, that and you taste good," she joked lightly, and the blonde glared. "Sorry, but I already said I'm bad with this depressing stuff." She apologized with a shrug. "It's less about respect and more like, damn, I didn't even know about you until recently." She pointed out, "I was aware the Jinchuriki is some blonde kid. Uzumaki sounds familiar, and that is about it," she explained. Naruto had a blank expression as he registered that. "Oh," he muttered, "so you met me, my blood helps you, and you want to keep your meal ticket close?" he asked dryly. Anko winced. I guess that being able to get a sip whenever my pain flares up is nice, but I also sort of wanted to train you," she confessed. "Maybe let you sign the contract with the Hibi clan before we kill Orochimaru if we can convince the current stuck-up bitch holding it into letting you." Naruto sighed. "Well, no chance of that," he muttered. "Already signed with the Gamma clan?" Anko guessed. "Nope, I can't make contracts," Naruto answered. "Not with the Senkamono tribes or clans at least." He added with a shrug, "Yet another perk of being Naruto Uzumaki, you know," he grumbled bitterly. Anko stared at the blonde for a moment. "Oh shit, why is Jiraiya taking you on then?" she wondered. "He can't even teach you any of the Gamma Hijitsu. Most of the jutsu I know are Hibi related," she muttered. "Yeah," Naruto sighed, "at least Jiraiya can teach me Fuinjutsu, I guess." He pointed out the silver lining to getting the Sannin as a direct sensei. "Besides, I can't sign any of the contracts, so I can't get any of them, and I won't say no to more ninjutsu if you want to teach me." "What's your chakra affinity?" Anko asked curiously. "Futon," Naruto answered. "Fuck you," Anko retorted. "You would have the fucking rarest affinity shared by Asuma Sarutobi," and she stopped. "Actually, I might be able to work something out by the time you get back from your mission," she mused as she smirked, recalling that they had a few prisoners she had access to who could use Futon no Jutsu. Naruto frowned again. "Speaking of, have you slept yet? Had any weird dreams?" he asked curiously. The woman had bounced back remarkably well. Anko shook her head. "Despite your ominous warnings, I'm fine," she assured with a roll of her eyes. "I even had a nap before I got here. Completely dreamless," she added, and that was enough to relax the blonde. "But I'll let you rest up for your mission and grill you about what you're keeping from me when you get back and I'm pent up and suffering withdrawal symptoms," she said cheerfully. Naruto got the impression his welcome wagon when he got back from his latest mission would be less than ideal. "Can't you greet me with home-made ramen or something?" he grumbled. "I'm not your Hahaya," Anko pointed out dryly. The blonde didn't have a response for that. "Or your Okuzan," she added cheekily. The blonde frowned as he processed that, then his eyes widened and his cheeks turned bright red. Naruto double-checked his equipment. With his new flak vest he had a replacement until his bandolier was repaired. Mainly he was taking stock of his scrolls and what he had. Only 2 more blood vials left. He decided he should probably buy more at some point just in case. No Kojiritsu was left in the dream for now. Naruto had gotten good practice with it but had yet to actually upgrade it like he had the Nokojiriboko, which people already knew of. The blonde kept his more brutal weapon enclosed within a scroll. He was doing a mission as a ninja and he might need to be non-lethal. Nokojirijutsu was anything but non-lethal. Mostly Naruto enclosed emergency ramen in sets of 4 as a just-in-case, as well as portable cooking supplies to make his life easier, and his tool pouch less bulky, spare clothes, spare shuriken, and his blunderbuss. The gun was loaded and the last quicksilver bullet besides that and the one still in the pistol was still in his tool pouch next to the pistol. Out the front of Naruto's apartment was his cell, Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura, along with Karen, Yo. The blonde greeted lazily, copying the Hataki's mannerisms. Naruto, we didn't get to congratulate you yesterday. Sakura greeted with an apologetic smile. Everything was so busy, and Karen-san wouldn't let me leave the medical tents. She added with a side-eyed look at the redhead. You got stabbed in the lung. Be grateful it was a clean cut and that Hanbei didn't twist the blade. Karen retorted sternly. Do not strain yourself, you heard the doctor, no missions for a week. She reminded. Sakura still thought it was impressive they'd fixed her up that she'd be fine in a week, but at the same time, I bet Naruto would be up and fighting Hanbei after an injury like that though. She pointed out. Hardly fair, he's practically bred for war. Sasuke pointed out, which earned him a concerned and confused look from the Haruno, Uzumaki and Jinchuriki. I sincerely doubt that's accidental. He pointed out. Naruto shrugged. Well, the Yondaime gave it to me, so I guess he figured I'd use it to protect the village. He pointed out. Lucky I don't do the opposite out of spite. He grumbled under his breath. I'll become Hokage though, so it's my village to protect, you know. He finished possessively. Kakashi chuckled wryly. Ah, youth, he joked. Whatever the reason, it's good that you want to help protect Konohagakure no Sato. He praised. I wanted to have a gift ready, but Hokage-sama sort of sprang the promotion. We do need to bolster our middle forces a bit after that fight, even with your help. He finished with a nod to the blonde. Konoha's trump card, Sasuke began in flat tones, endless Naruto bunshin. Naruto shrugged. Hey, as long as it works. He pointed out as he began the walk to the gate. Sakura frowned. You didn't pack anything? She asked. Fuinjutsu lets me enclose things in scrolls. It's great. Naruto bragged cheerfully. Kakashi-sensei probably knows it. He mused. The Jonin did not appreciate his now Chunin underling sicking the two genin on him. Oh yeah, Karen, give this to Enko-chan if she comes around. He added as he handed the redhead a red scroll. What did you do? Karen asked, a little paler than normal. Why would Enko Mitarashi be around? Sakura asked, concerned from what little she had heard. Don't worry about it. Naruto answered both at once as he continued to walk. Kakashi was pretty worried about it. Sasuke followed the blonde's advice though and focused his attention on the bandage that was still around Kakashi's right wrist. Thanks to the efforts of the area ninja, most injuries had been treated to a degree that only the worst still needed bandages. Sasuke's left arm was wrapped up from his Chidori training still, but those were his bandages. Sakura had bandages on her chest under her shirt, the edges of that were visible, and of course Naruto looked as though nothing had hurt him despite the contrary. Oi, Kakashi, Sasuke began, and the Jonin frowned under his mask at the lack of honorific. What hit you? He asked, pointing at the bandage. Kakashi shrugged. Cursed poison. He joked dryly. It was possibly true though, but his students didn't need to know that. Don't worry about it. He added, mirroring what the blonde had said. Sakura-chan may have another day of rest, but Sasuke-kun has D ranks. He reminded cheerfully. Karen was technically on area ninja duty as a volunteer as she wasn't in the paperwork systems yet, but they planned on working on that. Sasuke grit his teeth. We get C ranks once the blonde gets back? He asked, and the Jonin nodded but shrugged. Hurry up and go find this doctor or whatever it is you're doing, the Uchiha demanded. Naruto nodded. I think Hokage-jiji called her Tsunade, you know, he said. Kakashi smiled as he enjoyed the shocked reactions of Sasuke, Sakura, and Karen at the name of the third Sannin. Enko smirked down at Temari. Hey, your Jonin commander is talking with Ibiki-san. You remember Ibiki-san, right? He remembers you. She began the interrogation with her usual excited, cheerful manner. It always threw people off. I wanted a chat with that guy too, so did most of the Umbu. Hayate-san was well liked. Instead we get to have some girl talk. She started darkly but finished even cheerier than before. Temari was shaking already. Girl talk? She asked hesitantly. Yes, see there's this boy I want to impress, Enko joked with a devious grin. He's got the rarest chakra affinity in Hai no Kuni the asshole, Futon, And I have in my grasp an enemy kunoichi who knows Futon no Jutsu and probably wants to get a good deal for her village, right? She asked. She already had something she was allowed to offer as long as they got good deals. Konohagakure no Sato enjoyed having an honorable reputation. Temari was completely thrown off but took a moment to process. Most of what I know uses my Tessen, and I'd sort of be surprised if you guys don't have Repusho just in a scroll somewhere in a library. She explained. Enko frowned. You calmed down quick. Were those breathing exercises? She asked with a raised eyebrow. Oh well, she sighed. Tell you what, write down in katakana or hiragana how you trained your futon chakra and how you apply it to your bukijutsu, and I'll ensure your siblings don't get interrogated. She promised. Temari frowned. Really? She asked incredulously. Nobody really wants to interrogate Gaara, and I doubt they know more than you. Enko pointed out. You're not a bad wenchen, are you? She asked teasingly. Temari's frown became a scowl. Whatever, I'll take the deal. She grumbled. Better you interrogate me than Kankuro anyway. She muttered as Enko gave her implements to write with. Kakashi ditched his remaining students with Shikamaru for D ranks and joined Asuma for lunch. So, do you think Kurenai-san is upset about Shino not getting a chance to prove himself? The Hatake asked. Asuma scoffed as he pulled out a cigarette. Shibi-san himself said the boy was too reckless in chasing down Kankuro. I'm ashamed I barely caught any of the fight during the chaos. Too busy trying to lock down Baki and make sure he didn't cut too many of our forces down. He explained. Kakashi nodded. That explains it. What about Gai-san? He added. Gai-san agreed. Niji wasn't ready from what I heard. While he showed good sense in retreating, he also showed he didn't think ahead to plan around someone planning around the strengths he showed in the preliminaries. Asuma explained, and the other jonin nodded in agreement. The two were silent as they walked past the tea stand. Kakashi stopped and met Asuma's eye with his own. A good day for tea, right? He asked. The Sarutobi nodded, and the two jonin made to follow the two cloaked figures with red clouds on said cloaks, each with a hat that had feature concealing ribbons, that were just leaving the tea stand. The two allowed themselves to be followed for a moment before the shorter of the two sighed. Kakashi-san, I have no further business here, he said, and the addressed jonin lifted his hataite and closed his eye. Asuma-san, do not make eye contact with the Uchiha, Kakashi warned as his own Sharingan met a pair of Sharingan with deep tear tracks underneath. Kakashi-san may have information. I'll retrieve it, then we go after the Kyuubi. Kakashi's eyes widened at the words as the taller man flashed a shark-toothed grin from under the shade of his hat. Tsukuyomi. So, Naruto began as he struggled to find what to do with his hands without weapons in them. He settled on clasping them behind his head as he walked. Why take me as an apprentice? He asked. Jiraiya shrugged. You're Jinchuriki. Kakashi can probably handle stop-gap measures if something goes wrong. But since you took an interest in Fuinjutsu, well, Sarutobi-sensei and I figured it best I handle your training for now, he explained. Naruto frowned. So, Kakashi-sensei won't teach me anything new? He asked. Jiraiya shook his head. Not quite. I'm sure he'll have stuff to show you still, but don't worry, I'll show you something better than Chidori on this mission, he promised with a grin. I hardly need a jutsu to shove my hand in someone, Naruto commented dryly, less than impressed. Damn, you're more brazen than I thought, but you shouldn't shove your whole hand in a lady, Jiraiya said blandly. Naruto blinked olishly as he processed what he heard. I more meant he hesitated. He could not explain the claws, brute force, violence, bloodshed. He listed flatly. Jiraiya scoffed. I know, you need to learn to lighten up, you're starting to remind me of a young Kakashi. He scolded. He threw himself into mastering the killing arts of being a shinobi too young too, and you two are hardly the only examples of young minds having difficulty coping with it. He lectured. That's why D-rank missions are basically chores. Shodai-sama wanted to do away with the use of child soldiers during the Sengoku Jidai. Naruto frowned. It's my brain, so I get to choose the coping mechanism, he argued lazily. Besides, Hitai makes me an adult, he insisted. It's not that simple, Jiraiya said with a sigh. Konoha tries to keep genin out of deadly situations until they're 15. Sometimes that fails. He sighed. In the case of your graduating year, Most of those who passed are those who already have existing aptitude for the shinobi life due to their background as the children of shinobi clans. Hell, most of your generation are the heirs and heiresses. He pointed out, with you being Uzumaki, the only shinobi in your entire graduating year who isn't from a clan is Sakura Haruno, and even then her parents were ninja. One of them is still in active duty. Naruto hadn't really considered that until it was laid out for him. So what? He asked. They got Hijitsu. Sakura-chan is good at memorizing details and has a good eye for genjutsu, and I've got kitsune magic. He joked. Jiraiya frowned. You do not have kitsune magic. He denied. I am Legion. Naruto retorted. In fact, Kage Bunshin are for scouting, so why are we searching the slow way? He asked. People are going to notice 100 blonde kids in flak vests, and Hitaiite, and if Tsunadeheim finds out we're looking for her, she's just going to be harder to find. Jiraiya responded, best to remain low-key for now. He advised as they approached the first stop, a town that was such a common rest stop it was named after how many hotels and motels it had. Naruto looked around. He noticed the reactions he got were again different. No one in this town knew him, but they knew what Hitaiite meant and that the flak vest he wore signified he was a chunin. There weren't any other ninja around, but the civilians gave the two shinobi a wide berth. Jiraiya was a bit more standout than Naruto was, so he got more strange looks, especially since his Hitaiite had kanji instead of a symbol signifying his loyalty to Konoha. Why don't you wear Konoha on your Hitaiite anyway? Naruto asked. The kanji symbolizes I trained on my Obokuzan. Jiraiya answered before a woman winking at him caught his eye. Say, why don't you get us a room? I'll meet you in a little bit, he said as he went after the woman. Naruto frowned. He vaguely recalled the man watching women playing in waterfalls while training him, carrying a spyglass, and how he had acted towards Anko, pervert. He muttered under his breath. The blonde didn't waste time looking for a place. He rented 2 rooms, one room for himself and one for the Sannin with 2 beds. White-haired old dude, you can tell him where I'm staying and I'll give him his key. Naruto informed the man working the front desk, who nodded professionally. Naruto decided he liked the looks he got from civilians while he was wearing the flak vest. At least outside of Konoha there was some concern, but mostly people seemed impressed or respectful of the light armor that Chunin wore. He never realized it was so symbolic, he just thought it was armor. The Hitaiite always seemed far more symbolic to him. Once the newly promoted blonde Chunin had secured his room, he descended into the dream just in case. Oh my, good Ryoshi, your new armor looks good. The doll commented and Naruto smiled pleasantly. Then the blonde sighed. I have a busy mission, so I can't hunt for a bit, but I'll be spreading out some more, activated stones I guess, he informed, gesturing to the glowing tombstones. The doll nodded. Then I wish you good luck on your mission. What is the importance, may I ask? She questioned. Naruto frowned. Hokage Gigi got badly hurt. His student is an area ninja, so we need to find her so she can help, he explained. I see. The doll said in a way that indicated she did not understand. Someone approaches your quarters, she warned. Naruto returned to his body and got up to hear urgent knocking. That was fast. She already turned you down, he questioned as he approached the door and opened it. Oh, you aren't Jiraiya, he noticed. The man on the left was blue, with a Kiri Hitaiite that had a slash through the symbol and some massive bandaged weapon, likely a club from the shape of it, on his back. His grin was feral and his eyes reminded Naruto of the Yaju. The other was shorter and had black hair and a short ponytail, tracks in his cheeks, and Sharingan. His Hitaiite also had a slash through it, but the symbol was Konoha. Naruto failed not to make eye contact. Naruto-kun, step outside, the Uchiha ordered. The blonde obeyed unwillingly and wrenched his eyes down. Panicked, he hopped back and searched for an escape. Oh ho, good instincts, the blue-skinned man praised with a chuckle. Should I take his legs? He doesn't need legs to survive, right, Itachi-san? The man asked, and the blonde tensed. Before Itachi could retort, Naruto's left hand blurred into motion, reached into his tool pouch, and retrieved his gun. Both apparent Nukenin became deathly still at where the blonde was pointing the firearm. Don't move or my brains get it, he threatened, barrel pressed to his own left temple with a disturbingly feral smirk on his own face. To Naruto, the spur of the moment plan was pure genius. He was immortal, he'd set up a rest spot, and the blue-skinned Nuke had commented they wanted him alive. Shit, he's crazier than I am. The man muttered, lowering his hand away from his weapon hesitantly. He's not meeting my eyes, Itachi muttered. Naruto-kun, do not do anything drastic, he requested, clearly trying to think of a way to de-escalate the situation. There was a risk that Naruto might squeeze the trigger in the midst of a genjutsu. All right, Naruto said. Now that he felt in control of the situation, his confident smirk became all too smug for someone holding a gun to his own head. Bet you didn't think of what to do if I took myself hostage, huh? He asked rhetorically. Now what are you two after me for? He asked. Kyuubi. The blue-skinned man answered flatly. Kisame. Itachi scolded, although without a hint of actual sternness. Itachi. Kisame retorted. Naruto. Naruto spoke up dryly. All right, well, I'm pretty sure you can have him. The Fuinjutsu is powered by Shinigami-sama, and he's not exactly cooperating with me. He explained, the double meaning of either Shinigami nor Kitsune cooperating making his smirk widen. What do you need a chakra no Bakemono for anyway? He's kind of a bitch to work with, you know. The blonde rambled as he stalled for time. Itachi and Kisame exchanged a look. The blonde wondered if the Sharingan could communicate messages with genjutsu using eye contact more literally than the impressions some people who knew each other could manage. We're just going to leave, Itachi said. Just like that? Naruto asked, not relaxing his grip on his gun or meeting the Uchiha's eyes. We were not prepared for a suicidal Jinchuriki, to be honest. We probably should have been, all things considered, Kisame commented. Naruto frowned. Do Jinchuriki just always get treated like shit? He grumbled. Usually more kept at arm's length out of fear, Itachi corrected, but I see how that would be traumatizing for a child. He agreed. Hold on, why are you after Jinchuriki specifically? Naruto asked. You said you wanted the Kyuubi, but you mentioned Jinchuriki specifically. What are you two up to? He questioned. Oh ho, Kisame chuckled. Inquisitive and insightful, isn't he? I heard he was a dumb brat. He mused. I guess you shouldn't believe all the rumors you hear, eh? Naruto frowned. I was a bit of a dunce in the academy, he acknowledged. I've been working on it. He added, not mentioning the supernatural help. Kisame scoffed. Great, a lazy suicidal genius of a Jinchuriki is suddenly applying himself, and we can't even put a stop to it. He complained but did slowly back away. Naruto watched smugly as the two backed off. But the moment of triumph was ruined by Sasuke Uchiha skidding to a halt at the end of the hall with murder in his Sharingan eyes. Itachi. He greeted tonelessly, then he frowned. Naruto, what the fuck? I know, right? Kisame commented. They want Kyuubi, Naruto said with a shrug. I have politely declined and they agreed thanks to taking myself hostage. He explained. You may praise my genius? He added smugly. Sasuke continued to frown. Why are you two after the Kitsune? He asked, eyes narrowed. Think you can use the Sharingan to control it and destroy Konoha? He dared to meet Itachi's eyes. The older Uchiha's eyes span and the younger's vision swam before he was in an inverse space. Tsukuyumi. Itachi declared, and then they were in the Uchiha district, that night years ago. Naruto watched with growing horror as Sasuke's eyes reverted to their natural black, his sockets darkening and his bags growing heavy before his eyes as the boy fell to his knees. What the hell is it, Tsukuyumi? The blonde asked. Itachi didn't answer and left instead, followed by Kisame. Naruto frowned and lowered his gun as they left, looking around nervously. Hostages are convenient, he muttered to himself, deciding not to dwell on using himself as one. Jiraiya arrived in a puff of smoke. I want to confront those two, but how in all the nations did you get them to back off? He asked, taking note of Sasuke's catatonic state with some concern. I bluffed. Naruto lied. They didn't want to risk calling it. He added at the incredulous look he received. So, already got turned down? He asked as he put his pistol away. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow at the gun and the change of subject. They put her under genjutsu to distract me. A cowardly attempt. He explained. Damn it, now we need to. Jiraiya-sama. Guy shouted as he rounded the corner. Sasuke-san has gone after Dash. He began. Oh, you found him. He realized. Good, he was going after a dangerous nuke. he explained. Itachi Uchiha. Naruto guessed. Guy nodded. Jiraiya-sama. Kakashi-san was also further injured by Itachi. This is how the information on his whereabouts leaked, he hinted. Jiraiya nodded as he took in the double meaning. Itachi had gotten information on where Naruto was by taking it from Kakashi, and Kakashi had likely been left in a state similar to Sasuke which was how the younger Uchiha found out. Take Sasuke back to the village. We're on our way to find Tsunade Senju. She'll look at these two after she checks out Sarutobi-sensei. I'm sure she'll look at the other injured too. Jiraiya explained, and Guy nodded gratefully before he scooped up the unconscious genin and returned to Konoha. Then the Sannin turned on the blonde. 2 rooms? He asked. I can't sleep around others, Naruto said blandly. Another presence in the room always makes me jolt awake. It's arcane, he explained vaguely, trying not to smile at his private joke. Jiraiya shrugged. Well, I guess you're at that age where you should have privacy, he mused. Alright, rest up. I'll secure the building and tomorrow I'll show you the first step to the A-rank ninjutsu you'll be learning while we search for Tsunadeheim. Naruto stared at the water balloon. How is this supposed to help me learn ninjutsu? Is this like the leaf balancing thing where doing it helps practice chakra control but it has no practical application? He asked. Jiraiya raised an eyebrow. I swear I heard you weren't this smart. He muttered. Sort of. It's step 1 of learning an A-rank ninjutsu that doesn't require hand seals and uses pure chakra control, he explained. Then he popped a water balloon with his chakra. Naruto made an attempt, and nothing happened. He made the seal of confrontation with his left hand and focused his chakra. He closed his eyes as he concentrated. He could practically hear the water moving, feel his chakra flowing into the water and moving it within the balloon, but when he opened his eyes he was looking at an oblong water balloon stretched but undamaged by water spinning within. What's the trick? Figuring it out is part of the training, Jiraiya answered vaguely with a smug smirk. Anyway, now that we're somewhere secure, he continued, and Naruto wondered when the man had made Kagebushin to do that. Sarutobi-sensei and I agreed that given your promotion, as well as how much you've matured, that you should know, I'm your Nadzukiya. Naruto's eyes widened. They trusted you knew them? He stumbled over his words. One question at a time, and for the record, this is the real reason I took you as an apprentice. Naruto took a deep breath and threw the water balloon at Jiraiya. Why am I only meeting you now? He snapped angrily. I deserve that, Jiraiya acknowledged without taking the burst balloon from his now soaked head. Honestly, those of us who knew your parents best, who knew more about what happened, we didn't deal with what happened very well. He confessed. Tsunade knew too. Sarutobi-sensei was the only one who held it together, and he kept your heritage a secret to protect you from your parents' enemies, he explained. Naruto crossed his arms and continued to glare. Who? He asked bluntly. Your Hahaya was Kushina Uzumaki, Jiraiya began solemnly, the previous Kyubi Jinchuriki with more talent for brute force than any ninjutsu, he explained, and the blonde was surprised and alarmed to hear that detail. And your Shikyu was Minato Namikaze. Naruto's eyes widened further. Yandame Hokage and Kiroi Senko. The main reason Sarutobi-sensei hid this is because of IWA. But given you made Chunin and displayed a good grasp of what you need to do to survive as a ninja, we decided to let you in on it, secretly. Seriously, please hide this better than your Kitsune's secret. Naruto frowned. I'll keep the Yandame thing under wraps, he muttered, but I have the Uzumaki name, he pointed out. People probably honestly guess you're Kushina-chan's, if they knew her, Jiraiya confessed. Some of them can probably guess who the Shikyu is from there, but mercifully kept it quiet. He explained, just please, don't be open about it. Naruto frowned. Fine. He grumbled petulantly. Then he grabbed another water balloon and made another attempt. This time he tried to move the chakra with his left hand while focusing with his right. Kaomi Isuppaka screeched, and the balloon burst. Okay, maybe take that off while you practice Rasengan, Jiraiya suggested. With the Kaomi Isuppaka enclosed in a scroll, as disrupting the balloon with sound waves was clearly not the purpose of the exercise, Naruto made very little progress. He took balloons with him into the dream, and again the fact he could do that baffled him. Mostly Naruto kept at it to distract himself from the new information. He put up a strong face, but he was conflicted over learning his parentage. His mother had been a previous Jinchuriki and his father was the one to put the Kyuubi in him. He wondered what had happened that night, but he hadn't thought to ask in the moment. It also made the comments that the Yondaime had intentionally made Naruto Uzumaki a living weapon intentionally seem a lot worse. He recalled the official story. The Kyuubi no Kitsune had attacked and the Yondaime Hokage had defeated it. Then Naruto learned that defeating it had in fact entailed locking it into the Kirakuki of a child. Now, though the blonde knew there had been a Jinchuriki in between himself and Mito Uzumaki, Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto sighed as he stared at the balloon in his hand. He was far too unfocused to make any progress popping it with pure chakra control. The blonde glared down at his navel. I bet the Kitsune would probably help those jerks get himself ripped out of me. He grumbled, recalling how bitter his tenon had been with the fact they were now stuck together for what may be forever. As soon as Naruto and Jiraiya were on the road again, the blonde asked, "What happened that night?" he asked. Jiraiya didn't need the blonde Chunin to explain which night he meant. I wasn't there, and I wish I had been, he answered. Giving birth weakened Kushina-chan's Fuinjutsu. He began to explain. I know what you're probably thinking, but no, not your fault. They knew what they were doing and took precautions. He interrupted himself at the look on Naruto's face. Sarutobi-sensei told me a man in a mask interfered, broke the Fuinjutsu, and unleashed the Kyuubi no Kitsune on Konohagakure no Sato. He explained. From there, Yondaime-sama sacrificed his life to lock the Kitsune in the only available source of chakra who could handle it, since having a chakra no Bakemono ripped out of your Kirakuki is basically fatal. Naruto absorbed the information. So, those two were going to kill me eventually anyway. He mused. The fact using himself as a hostage worked in that situation was amusing, but he supposed they didn't know for certain what would happen to the Kitsune if he died either. The blonde continued his attempts, but he was still having difficulty despite having gone through a couple of balloons. No matter how much he spun the water instead of popping the balloon, he usually ended up just stretching the material until the balloon wore out and sprung a leak. So Kacchan was no good with this control stuff either, huh? Naruto mused. He supposed naturally bad control came with naturally large reserves, and from the sounds of it the Kitsune's chakra was constantly leaking into his. The blonde Chunin stopped. His thought process halted and backed up a step as he registered that he was getting a constant stream of Kitsune chakra. The Fuinjutsu was supposed to do that, but apparently it eroded over time and let more out. But the Kitsune in question didn't actually seem to want this and referred to what Naruto received as dregs. This did not help pop the balloon, but it did give Naruto an idea. Maybe if I dash? He began as he attempted to brute force it, make the water explode outwards. Instead, the balloon was launched from his hand and splashed down the road. Well, at least your chakra control will be better once you figure this out, Jiraiya commented cheerily, but he didn't give further hints. Chapter 25. Just a few problems. Naruto watched a cat owned by an innkeeper on the way to the next place he and Jiraiya would search for Tsunade Senju. Apparently the woman changed her age and appearance to avoid debt collectors and was a notorious gambler. So of course they would be nearing a town in the midst of a festival shortly, for Jiraiya to gather information from a wide range of people condensed in one town. A rather large town too, from what Naruto had heard. Tanzakaga was practically a tourist destination in Hai no Kuni. Not that the blonde actually knew why that was. The blonde let the cat play with the water balloon he'd set down, while he contemplated how to make the water spin in such a way that it popped. He was idly surprised the cat could tell not to use her claws on the water balloon. Naruto cocked his head to the side and the cat stopped to meet his eyes. The boy blinked and the cat blinked back before it returned to playing with the balloon. The Chunin wasn't sure what to make of the cat. He had noticed that animals reacted to him a bit differently. Cats didn't give a care to the blonde, except when he moved and they paid attention. Dogs were, as far as he could tell, normal. They barked at him, but after sniffing him and inspecting him most dogs left him well enough alone. The Inuzuka Niken were intelligent, and he tended to think of them more like people than animals. But he noticed Akamaru wasn't the only one to watch him when he moved. The Forest of Death seemed to have more Yaju than normal animals though. Naruto still had no idea why that was. What had happened to cause that? It was the animals who were more used to being prey that reacted to Naruto the most differently though. He'd seen a normal snake spot him, taste the air, and turn the other direction before taking off with a speed that made the blonde worried about the next time he encountered a giant snake. Birds tended to flee the area in the presence of the blonde Ryoshi, with rare exception that he supposed were more carnivorous and predatory species, but Naruto wasn't a bird watcher. He hadn't even seen a deer since the incident, and the only boar he'd seen was already dead, and that had been a while ago. "What am I to you guys, I wonder?" Naruto asked quietly, curious how the cat saw him differently to the other people, or if cats could tell the difference between a civilian and a ninja too. He doubted it. A shinobi-trained cat probably could, but a regular animal was a bit easier to evade. Then the water balloon popped. Naruto stared at the water as the cat panicked and retreated from the splash of water with loud yowls that indicated complaints about getting her fur wet. The blonde was pretty sure Claws had not done that. He grabbed another water balloon as he tried to think of what had happened. Naruto swung his left hand at the balloon as he focused his chakra, this time going at it from different angles like he was a cat playing with a ball, and the water moved more similarly to how Jiraiya demonstrated the first time. Then the water balloon popped. Naruto had finally done it. The next step was to do the same thing but with a solid rubber ball. Making solid rubber burst with raw chakra was not something the blonde expected to need to do ever. He was also surprised at how difficult it was. Naruto was used to just being able to pour chakra into jutsu, so the fact that part of the training for this ninjutsu involved figuring out how to muster more chakra than he normally could intrigued him about the potential power behind the Rasengan. "You know, we're approaching a festival. Maybe you should take a break and have some fun," Jiraiya suggested. "Training is fun," Naruto insisted with a scowl as he glared at the rubber ball that was refusing to burst like the Sennin had demonstrated. Jiraiya frowned. "Alright, look, ninja need to blend in sometimes, so while I can definitely say there are times where training away from everyone and giving your all for days at a time is the way to go, I need to gather information, and I'm not leaving you outside of town while there are people after the Kyuubi who know who you are," he lectured. Naruto blinked owlishly. "Oh, fair enough then," he muttered bashfully. He put the rubber ball away and followed the white-haired Sannin into the town with the festival already in swing. There were food stalls and game stalls, and people enjoying themselves. Naruto wished he'd been allowed to stay out of the village. He was feeling overwhelmed. His paranoia acted up. There were too many people, too much sound, too many things going on. He held it together by following Jiraiya, but he noticed that the civilians gave the two Konoha shinobi a slight berth that he was also grateful for. The Sennin pulled out a wallet and fiddled with some notes. "Here, doesn't exactly make up for all the missed birthdays, but it's a start. Have some fun while I gather information," he offered as he held out a folded-up clip of notes. He'd wanted to teach the boy about vices and avoiding them, but he still felt guilty about the Godfather situation. The blonde Chunin accepted with a nod and was left in the midst of a festival alone. His eyes darted around. Movement behind him raised his hackles, but it was a crowd in the midst of a festival. There was always someone behind him. Naruto tried and failed to relax until he found a public restroom. He checked his medical kit, the normal ninja one, because he recalled something Karen had said along with something he'd read in a journal in the dream. Sedatives relax the mind. The blonde didn't even try to pronounce the name on the label. Karen herself had set the recommended dosage with Uzumaki physiology in mind. Technically it was something of a painkiller, and a bit stronger than was normally given over the counter, but the blonde was getting a headache, and he decided to down a dose with a hand full of water. Naruto relaxed. His headache dulled, and by the time he left the restroom the pain was completely gone. The blonde Chunin wondered what he'd been so worried about. It was just people. He could handle people. Naruto casually slipped between civilians as he checked out the stalls with a dreamlike expression on his face. He decided to try some games. The Chunin was completely unaware of the way his steps became more sure or how his presence made civilians uncomfortable. Even sedated, the blonde boy had enough hand-eye coordination and fine motor skill for most of the games. Not that he succeeded on the first try every time, but the stall owners became increasingly nervous at how easily he adapted to the ways they'd stack the games against the customers. When Naruto got the highest score on a strength tester despite being the shortest to try, the event organizers took notice, and as he was throwing small rubber balls at stacked-up bottles, a pair of men approached him. The blonde barely registered them, focused on the stack of bottles that he'd hit but not knocked down. Assuming he just held back too much, he threw again. The stacked bottles fell without falling apart, giving away how badly rigged that particular stall had been to onlookers. "All right, Gaki, you've had your fun," one of the men said and put a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Instantly the calm that had been over the blonde like a veil was ripped off and he grabbed the wrist of the offending hand in a vice-like grip. The blonde Chunin stopped himself before his reflexes made him do something visceral and violent. "Don't touch me," he warned simply. Then he took in the appearance of the two. One was bald and dressed in a suit, while the other had short spiked black hair and had a long coat over his suit. The man shivered but his partner glared. "Don't you get a big head just because you made Chunin young," he scolded. "We were Chunin too, and Aniki made it just as young as you," he bragged as the blonde released the man who stepped back to stand with the other. Gantetsu-san was feared as the Densetsu no Anin. Naruto wondered what the impressive-sounding title meant. "So you use that weird genjutsu that takes away people's senses?" he asked. Gantetsu smirked. You know of it, but no, while I do use it, that is not the sole reason for my title," he bragged arrogantly, trying to put up a strong face despite the strength he'd felt in the younger ninja's grip. "As for you, you may be a Konoha shinobi, but this town? I like living here, so it's under my protection, which means the event organizers for this festival want me to make sure no shinobi visiting for the festival breaks the rules, and you've been getting a stack of prizes." Naruto frowned and looked at his prizes, which were less of a stack and more of a pair of Kage Bunshin carrying them so they didn't touch the ground. "I'm on a date with myself and he joked, "and I just really wanted to impress us, you know." Gantetsu's eye twitched. "Who do you think you are?" he asked. "Naruto Uzumaki." Something about spiked blonde hair and blue eyes with a Konoha Hittite and flak vest being associated with the name Uzumaki set off alarm bells in Gantetsu's head. "Chosiki-san," he began nervously. "Does this Gaki look familiar at all? That hair color and eye color on an Uzumaki?" he questioned. Chosiki considered it. He imagined the young Chunin slightly older and without any baby fat left. He said, seeming to go catatonic as it hit him. Naruto frowned. "What?" he asked. Gantetsu and Chosiki exchanged glances, then they even went as far as making hand signals at each other, which escalated into open sign language. "All right," the man with hair and a long coat exclaimed. "Hey, Naruto-kun, how about you come with us? You can keep your prizes, but we'll show you the food stalls," he offered with a faux grin. Naruto narrowed his eyes at the man. "I can find the food myself," he said. His tone gave away how suspicious he thought the change in attitude was, but the way he crossed his arms indicated he didn't care to hide it. Chosiki frowned. "Aniki?" he asked. "No, Kyodai," Gantetsu responded with a shake of his head. "All right, Gaki, your hesitation makes sense, but we're serious here," he said before he began to loom over the younger Chunin. "You'd best come with us so you don't get hurt." Naruto snorted. Me getting hurt?" He laughed before he shook his head and turned to walk away from the two. His head was still fuzzy, so he didn't think about the subtext or cues, so being punched in the head took him by surprise. "Damned cocky little shit," Chosiki snapped angrily. "Shit," Gantetsu muttered. "All right, let's get him out of," he began but halted as the blonde stood up. The boy was just rubbing his head as if he hadn't been sucker punched. You two are Nuke Nin or something then?" Naruto asked as he palmed a pair of kunai in his left hand. "I took some sedatives Wunchin gave me, but I think I can still take you down," he said and took a step forward before he paused. "Wait, do I get more money for you dead or alive?" he wondered. Gantetsu and Chosiki went still, for the single step had shifted Naruto's stance and unleashed his killing intent. The implication that he was drugged and still as dangerous as he seemed was alarming to both the men. "We don't have bounties in Hino Kuni," Gantetsu answered, not mentioning that he knew a place that accepted bounties held in other nations and even black market bounties. Naruto pouted. "Oh, I wanted some more money, you know," he complained, losing interest in fighting the two men immediately despite having just been punched in the head. Chosiki's fight or flight response was active, and as Naruto's killing intent lessened, he chose fight. The bald ninja in a suit charged and swung a right straight at the blonde, who weaved back and lifted his left hand to drive both kunai into Chosiki's forearm. Then he grabbed the wrist of the man and tossed him. If it had been a proper taijutsu flip, that would have been enough, but Naruto lifted and threw the older shinobi by the arm, nearly ripping said arm from the socket, and keeping his kunai, which caused a small trail of blood between the blonde and where the bald man landed. Gentetsu paled at the display of supernatural strength. He hesitated for a moment, then he weaved hand signs. Naruto saw feathers and blinked them away with a frown. "Did you just try to put me to sleep?" he asked. He was pretty sure that had been similar to the genjutsu used at the start of the invasion during the Chunin exam finals. Gentetsu made more hand signs as he hopped back, then he crouched and slapped his hands to the ground and the pavement lifted up to form the head of a dragon. Naruto barely registered the civilians crying out in alarm and evacuation as he flicked one of the kunai from his left hand to his right, then moved towards his opponent in a serpentine weave to dodge the rocks that were pelted at him from the earthen dragon's maw. Naruto enjoyed the rush of adrenaline that flushed the sedatives through his system, the way his head cleared as his focus on his opponent, on his prey, sharpened. A few rocks scored glancing blows, but the blonde got past the dragon facsimile and thrust his left-hand kunai. A swiftly palmed kunai in Gentetsu's right hand parried the attack, so the blonde stepped forth to thrust with his right hand. The kunai struck through the long coat and scored blood, but it wasn't the amount Naruto was used to, and he attacked again. Gentetsu went on the defense, and parried the follow-up left hook with the kunai as he stepped back on his left foot to the right to circle around. But the blonde young Chunin spun and continued his relentless assault as he wore feral grin-bared canines too long for a normal human. In what was currently functioning out of Naruto's thoughts was the idea that the men had attacked him unprovoked. Therefore they were Yaju to be hunted, therefore the blonde hunted for the first time in a few days. He didn't think only a few days of not hunting would result in his current mindset, but he was still coming down from sedatives. Gentetsu attempted to circle around to get an angle of attack, but Naruto caught on and spun back to his right instead of chasing to his left, and lifted his right leg to pendulum his heel into the temple of his prey. The follow-through momentum sent the man crashing through the bottle's game. Choseki lunged to thrust a kunai at Naruto's back, but he found himself in a headlock. "Naruto, what the hell are you doing?" Jiraiya asked as he held the bald ninja in place. "They started it." Naruto defended himself quickly with the truth. "We're security," Choseki insisted. "Got a badge?" Jiraiya asked, and the bald man paled. "No badge means no authority." He pointed out, "Alright, I think that's enough festival for you. Come on, let's hit the other side of town, I got a lead," he told the blonde as he dropped Choseki. Gentetsu stumbled out of the stall with the help of the stall owner, and Naruto finally realized the civilians weren't looking at him like he'd done something right. They seemed irritated by his presence, they seemed scared of him. The blonde recalled how Gaara had turned out, and tried to ignore the looks as he followed Jiraiya away from the festival. "I don't think I like crowds very much," Naruto commented. "You should learn how to deal with crowds, but I believe you that they started it, and I don't blame you for defending yourself," Jiraiya responded as they walked. Naruto still had some difficulty with the rubber ball, even practicing in the dream, and he started to understand that his need to hunt was more than just a craving or a want. The issue was he didn't have a solution, and he couldn't talk about it with anyone because it made him inhuman. The blonde Chunin glanced at the tombstones and considered teleporting back to Konoha to ask Karen. She was closest to knowing the truth, but he never expressed how inhuman he felt to her. The one person Naruto had opened up about that to was Haku, who was somewhere outside of Hai no Kuni in a location that the blonde knew nothing about. Naruto was glad he hadn't accidentally turned Anko into something like whatever he was. She clearly had enough problems. It was weird to him that she wasn't approaching Sasuke actually. They both had the same Juninjutsu from Orochimaru as far as the blue-eyed Chunin could tell. The rubber ball refused to pop well into the next morning, and Jiraiya noticed his frustration, as well as the way he kept at it. "You having trouble with something?" He wondered once they actually reached the clearing the Sannin had chosen for his student to practice in. "I can't focus," Naruto confessed. "Forcing the amount of chakra I need for this is harder than I thought," he muttered. Jiraiya hummed as he considered it. "You need a focal point," he explained. "What?" "A focal point, it's just a spot you focus on, center your chakra there," Jiraiya clarified before he grabbed his ink brush. "Hold out your hand," he ordered, and the blonde did so. "Your right hand," Naruto corrected himself. Here, this will help. Jiraiya said as he painted a small swirl in the center of the Chunin's palm. Try to focus your chakra there. He explained. Naruto shrugged but continued his attempt with the second stage of Rasengan training. He gripped the ball tightly, made the seal of confrontation with his left hand, and then began to swat his left hand at the ball from different angles. To Jiraiya's surprise, just the focal point was enough, and after a tense moment as Naruto's chakra began to visibly glow yellow, the rubber ball exploded. The Sannin pulled out a regular balloon, filled it with air, and handed it to his student. Congratulations, Naruto-kun. The third phase is to combine the spin of the first stage with the power of the second but not pop the balloon. Naruto stared at the balloon, he gripped it, and tested how it reacted to his attempts to swirl the chakra without adding any extra power or spin with his left hand. It popped immediately. I think I'm going to need a lot of balloons. The blonde grumbled. Jiraiya nodded. Figures you're not wanting for power, but the control step is going to be a bit of a speed bump. He mused, commenting both on how fast the Chunin had completed the first two steps and how long he expected the final step to take. Naruto spent all morning practicing in earnest before he followed Jiraiya back into the gambling section of town to see how his information gathering worked. Mostly it was just asking around gambling dens. At first it seemed like no one had seen her, then one man commented that he might know something but insisted on a dice game for it. Jiraiya was not happy about gambling mission information, especially not when they needed it about Tsunade, and the man was trying to run a business, so he agreed. Naruto tried to get a grasp of the rules, but he lost interest in the numbers and turned his attention to the slots machines. He found a coin and put it in. Sorry, looks like I win, the man said with a grin as Jiraiya frowned. Then both of them looked up as one of the slots machines paid out the jackpot, and the Sannin smirked at the blonde who won. Hey, wait, he's too young to. Hitite, Jiraiya interrupted. Ninja are adults, so he's allowed to do that much, he said with a wry chuckle. So, new deal, you can keep what you won from me, and I'll take the kid to where you saw Tsunadeheim? He offered. The man nodded and eagerly accepted, as he did not want some lucky fool ruining the stakes in his parlor. Naruto wasn't sure why they were being urged out so quickly, but he got a lot of money and it sounded like Jiraiya got the information they needed somehow, so he didn't bother making a fuss. It turned out, even with the cooperation, the two Konoha shinobi were still searching all day. Naruto grew worried, but Jiraiya assured him the woman was just on the move normally and wasn't actually fleeing town yet. The white-haired old man was proven correct when they encountered Tsunade about to enter a diner, Tsunadeheim. Jiraiya greeted happily as Naruto took in the appearance of the older blonde. Tsunade Senju was a fair-skinned blonde woman with brown eyes and a strange diamond symbol on her forehead. Her hair was parted evenly into bangs that framed her face and went down to her shoulders. She wore a gray, kimono-style blouse with no sleeves, held closed by a broad, dark bluish-gray obi that matched her pants. Her blouse was closed quite low, revealing her sizable cleavage. She had open-toed, strapped black sandals with high heels, red nail polish on both her fingernails and toenails, and a soft pink lipstick. On top of all that was the green Haori. Damn, her henge might be better than mine, Naruto muttered to himself as he appreciated her form, recalling what Jiraiya had told him of the woman's habits and true age. The white-haired Sannin tried not to laugh at the indignant look on Tsunade's face. Who said anything about a henge? She asked dangerously. Naruto knew he had made a dire mistake, so he deflected. Jiraiya-sensei told me about it, he accused with a pointed finger. There was no hesitation to this action. Tsunade raised an eyebrow as she crossed her arms, under her chest no less, which convinced the younger blonde she was doing it on purpose. Jiraiya-sensei? She muttered. You took a new pupil, she commented as she stared down at Naruto. Yes, I did, Jiraiya said proudly. Graduated from the events of his very first Chunin exam too, he said vaguely as he looked to the black-haired young woman next to Tsunade who was holding a pig. Shizen-chan, good to see you're still keeping an eye on Tsunadeheim for us, he joked. Naruto hadn't even realized the woman wearing a long bluish-black kimono with white trimmings, held closed by a white obi, and open-toed sandals with low heels was with Tsunade. Good to see you too, Jiraiya-sama, Shizen greeted politely with a bow. While we're doing introductions, Jiraiya began with a grin. My new student here is Naruto. he introduced. Naruto frowned. Naruto Uzumaki, he added, which made the Sannin who had left that part out frown. I guess the last name. Tsunade muttered, Alright, I came here to eat and drink. You can pay for the food if you're going to bother me while I consume food and alcohol, she demanded of her old teammate, who nodded and followed the blonde woman into the diner. Naruto and Shizen followed after them and let Jiraiya order a large dinner assortment, more than one entree, and a few drinks. The young Chunin vaguely recalled what the Sannin had said earlier that day about the Hittite making him an adult, and slyly poured himself a cup of sake when no one was looking at it. The way he hid it gave away that he knew he would be told not to, but in his mind if he already drank some by the time anyone noticed, then he was in the clear. Jiraiya decided to keep the questioning for after they'd had dinner. He knew Tsunade would be easier to deal with when she wasn't sober. In that time Naruto finished his cup. He decided he didn't see the big deal. It didn't taste that great, and he didn't think his cheeks were as flushed as Tsunade's. Then again, she had drank more. So, what brings you looking for me, Jiraiya? Tsunade asked accusingly as Naruto subtly poured himself more sake just to see what the fuss was about. Orochimaru hurt Sarutobi-sensei pretty bad recently, Jiraiya began, taking note that the woman did not react to his words, and some other promising shinobi are injured beyond our Area ninja capabilities as they are. We need your help, he finished. Tsunade frowned. So what happened in Konoha? She asked. I haven't heard much, but I heard it got hit. Orochimaru tricked Tsunagakure no Sato into invading us along with Otogakure no Sato, a new minor village where Orochimaru himself is the shinobi Gashira, wherever it is. Jiraiya answered in clipped tones. He killed their Kazekage and almost killed our Hokage, he added quietly. Tsunade looked down at her drink as she considered that she knew Orochimaru had probably gotten stronger, but for him to challenge and match actual Kage meant he genuinely could upset the balance of the shinobi Godaikoku. It meant he could change the makeup of the Gakage potentially. Shizen was the one to notice what Naruto had done. Are you drinking sake? She asked. Naruto nodded. Yeah, why do you guys like this stuff anyway? I thought it got you drunk or something. He complained about the lack of effect it had on him. Jiraiya snorted before he started laughing. You need stronger stuff, but save it for when you're older. You should drink what you enjoy, so get something that tastes good, he said. He couldn't even be bothered to scold the boy. Funny thing, that might have something to do with your chakra. I know there's a trick to swirl your chakra internally to sober up, he mused. Tsunade sighed. Alright, fine. How urgently does Sarutobi-sensei need help? She asked. He got hit with Kusanagi, Jiraiya answered. So did Kakashi for that matter, he added. Tsunade shuddered. I hate that thing, she grumbled before she exchanged a glance with Shizen, who looked more concerned than anyone at the table for some reason. Then the blonde Sannin sighed. Fine, I won't let Sarutobi-sensei die. But don't think I'm sticking around long after I provide treatment. Naruto did not like the sound of that. Why? He asked. Isn't Konohagakure no Sato your home? Don't you want to protect it? He questioned. Tsunade glared at the younger blonde. I don't live there anymore, she answered flatly. Naruto became puzzled. Wouldn't that make you a nuke nin? He asked. She's on indefinite leave, but is still officially a Konoha kunoichi. Jiraiya spoke up. Thanks to Sarutobi-sensei, he muttered. Why? Tsunade's eye twitched. I have bad memories in Konoha, she said through grit teeth. Her shoulders were bunched up to her neck. I do not want to return, but I will to help save Sarutobi-sensei if I can. Would you have even come back for his funeral? Naruto asked darkly. Failing that, would you have at least visited his grave? I've mourned enough, Tsunade grumbled. Naruto's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. Tsunade was still grieving someone, maybe multiple people. The younger blonde cocked his head to the side as he frowned. He realized he hadn't actually experienced that kind of loss yet. He'd been lonely and without parents, but he'd never known those parents. Then the blonde Chunin remembered he did know them now, and one of them had been a Hokage. Sorry I asked then? Naruto returned the grumble as he crossed his arms and looked away. Seeing people he cared about just come close to dying had caused him emotional pain and anger. He dreaded how he might react to someone close to him dying. It was decided by the Sannin with no input from their respective apprentices that they would begin the return to Konohagakure no Sato in the morning. So Naruto spent a night in the dream going through balloons that he bought and hopefully kept hidden from Jiraiya so the man wouldn't notice just how many he was using when he was supposedly asleep. To say Naruto was frustrated by the lack of progress was an understatement, and he simply didn't have enough balloons to make effective use of Kage Bunshin. But even without them he didn't need to sleep like a regular normal human, so in his mind he should have figured it out by now. By morning Naruto had bags under his eyes despite sleeping for just as long as anyone else, more from mental exhaustion than physical exhaustion. He kept practicing on the road despite the concerned looks from Shizen, but the balloon popped after a few moments yet again. Tsunade glanced back before she raised her eyebrows. "You're teaching him Rasengan?" she asked. "Yep," Jiraiya said proudly. "I should say he's getting it down pretty quick too." He added before he winced, "I should also say Yandame-sama invented it in 3 years, so him getting this far in the time is—" "Shikyu invented this," Naruto interrupted with a stunned expression. Jiraiya smacked himself in the face. "Can you keep secrets?" he asked. Naruto smirked. "I can be arcane, sure," he said vaguely. "They know anyway, right?" he asked, and Shizen looked uncomfortable, but Tsunade shrugged. "See?" he added, "secret technically kept." "You revealed it when you gave your clan name to them," Jiraiya explained. "The fact that he somehow got your parents to name you after a character in one of his books helped," Tsunade added. "They did what?" Naruto asked. "Not one of my smutty works, my first work, not a good seller, more action-focused, based on some of my own missions as a ninja. I named the main character Naruto." Jiraiya answered as he scratched his cheek. "I'm sorry you were named after a ramen topping." Naruto's eye twitched. "So I am named after a ramen topping. I don't know what to do with this information. I'm going to keep eating ramen though." His eye stopped twitching. "So, I can tell that incomplete Rasengan that's popping a balloon would hurt someone because it hurt my hand." He switched the subject. Jiraiya smirked. "Yeah, I suppose it would hurt. An incomplete Rasengan would still have roughly C-rank offensive capabilities." He mused before he formed a densely packed orb of spiraling yellow chakra in his right hand. "Hang on, I'll show you what that means," he said as the sphere of chakra loosened, then he hit a tree with it. The chakra tore into the bark and left spiral-shaped grooves. Given Naruto's clan symbol was a spiral and it was a name Uzumaki, he found it ironic to get an attack that did that. Then Jiraiya formed another Rasengan and did it without the chakra being loosened. The tree splintered. "If you don't control where the power goes, you might as well not have mustered the power," Jiraiya explained with a smirk. Shizen and Tsunade both watched with some vague interest, but neither had any intention of trying to reverse engineer the jutsu, not that they'd seen enough to do so yet anyway. Naruto continued practicing on the road and didn't notice anything wrong until all the adults stopped. He was used to short-distance threats in the dungeons, forests, or even the Chunin examinations, so he wasn't sure why they were stopped until he saw someone in red armor distantly down the road. Tsunade had turned deathly pale. "Orochimaru really did that then?" she asked, and Naruto tensed up. Jiraiya nodded. "We managed to capture the Naidame Hokage, but unfortunately Shodai-sama is still under the control of Orochimaru through this Edo Tensei," he explained. Naruto's eye twitched. "Why can chakra go against Shinigami?" he asked. "Good question," Jiraiya muttered. "According to Naidame-sama it's imperfect, at least they aren't truly in their prime, but if he's there, then Orochimaru is around here." Tsunade nodded. "He wanted me to heal someone for him. If it was anyone else I might have accepted. Hell, I almost did just to try and get whoever it is away from him," she explained, and Jiraiya looked alarmed to only be hearing about it then. "I guess he wanted you guys to not find me," she finished with a pained look on her face. Naruto tried to get a better look at the red-armored figure. From what he could tell, they certainly looked like the statues and pictures of the Shodai Hokage. The armored man started moving towards them, and Jiraiya bit his thumb, but as he began to weave hand signs there was a crash and a large cloud of smoke behind them. There on a giant serpent was Orochimaru. "Tsunade-chan, are you really letting the patient in my care die?" he asked. That his indignant air was only given away by his amused grin. With another cloud of smoke, a toad stood ready to face the serpent. "Shizen, get Naruto out of dash!" Jiraiya began to order. Naruto did not like the sound of the plan already and made the Bunshin sign to fight Kinjutsu with Kinjutsu, Taiju Kage Bunshin. He declared as the road and forest around them filled with smoke. The blonde braced himself, but before he could focus his chakra, a sword went through his chest. "Well, your new student is just as annoying as the last," Orochimaru commented as he pulled the Kusanagi out of the young blonde. "I wonder if he can survive that wound." He mused idly before he swung his blade into a group of Kage Bunshin to carry the momentum into a parry against Jiraiya's leaping kick. The white-haired Sannin proved adept enough in taijutsu to use his wooden sandals as an implement to block the blade of his opponent, and turn the momentum of the parry in the direction he wanted so as not to lose his posture or stance to Orochimaru's attempt. The giant snake tried to strike, but the massive toad managed to evade and grapple with it. Either was as big as the Shikaku or even the other giant snake, and toad that had been seen fighting during the Chunin exam invasion. Naruto stumbled back from the fight, and Shizen grabbed him to pull him back further. The woman began hand signs for Iri ninjutsu, but Tsunade just stared at the spilled blood with a look of horror as her body started to shake. The blonde young Uzumaki felt justified being annoyed. He was mortally wounded, and the supposed best Iri ninja couldn't help because she was scared of blood. It was so ridiculous he couldn't even be indignant as Shizen stopped the bleeding, and while she was doing that he got impressions of his Kage Bunshin being decimated by the Shodai on his way to them. Naruto made the mental note that his Kage Bunshin were more useful for combat against opponents who couldn't just slap him aside like he was a normal child because they were absurdly powerful. Then he shoved himself away from Shizen and tried another ninjutsu. Blonde hair became a golden mane of spikes under the power of chakra, but this armored mantle did little to protect from getting kicked in the head and sent through 2 Kage Bunshin and a tree. Naruto was grateful to learn his Kage Bunshin could provide some resistance as long as it wasn't a blade, but that had still hurt. The blonde Chunin reached for his flak vest as his hair returned mostly to normal, albeit a bit longer, and pulled out a scroll that he retrieved his last 2 blood vials from. As he tried to stand, finding he couldn't stand, Naruto shoved a vial into himself, and after an uncomfortable cracking sound came from his back, he stood up. The Shodai had moved on Tsunade, to be briefly halted by Shizen, but was halted further by the fact that Naruto had gotten up. Jiraiya and Orochimaru stopped their melee by hopping apart and checking what had happened as well. "Orochimaru-sama," Kabuto's voice behind Naruto had the blonde spin on his heel to see who he viewed as a traitor. His spine was broken, but after injecting himself with an unknown vial, even his spine mended, and the damage dealt by the Kusanagi no Tsurugi seems more lessened than I'd expect too, he explained. Orochimaru hummed, "Shodai Dano, what do you think? Could Mito-chan heal like that?" he asked. The Shodai frowned and shook his head. "No," he said with a glare at the snake ninja, "not to my knowledge at least," he added, mostly to throw the man off. "That could have been left unsaid. I presume everything everyone says to me is either a lie or only their own knowledge," Orochimaru retorted dismissively. The way he spoke to the Shodai roused Naruto's anger. Shizen looked equally affronted and Jiraiya attempted to go on the attack, but his heel struck through a Doton, Kage Bunshin instead. Naruto thought it was just a Tsuchi Bunshin, but he wanted it, although for all he knew it could have been an advanced application of Kawarimi. "Shodai Dano, fight with Jiraiya while I inspect this project," Orochimaru ordered from behind Tsunade. Shizen lunged for them, but the man just pulled away from the blonde woman as Jiraiya bunted a kick from the Shodai and attempted to fight the legendary Senju in taijutsu. "So, what are you healing yourself with, Naruto-kun?" Kabuto asked with a smug smirk of someone who was completely sure of his victory. The Chunin considered his options and decided that wiping that smirk of the traitor's face was his top priority. Naruto formed an incomplete Rasengan in his right hand and lunged at Kabuto with it, but was evaded, and the older ninja grabbed his wrist, then his arm, and flipped the blonde boy onto his back before taking the vial. Strange, no release mechanism, no plunger. Kabuto mused as he stepped away from the downed boy before he plunged the needle into his own arm. Nothing happened, how arcane. He muttered as he pulled the vial out and tried to figure it out. Naruto supposed that confirmed it was his body sucking in the blood as he stood up, but by the time he was up, Orochimaru was there. Shizen looked panicked and was pulling Tsunade away from the blood, while Jiraiya was being beaten back by an opponent who had infinite stamina and didn't need it to control the flow of their taijutsu battle. The white-haired Sannin knew that taking a black eye was better than letting the Shodai use Mokutan, but he had no way to use his own ninjutsu or fuinjutsu like that either. Tsunade was out of the fight effectively, and Shizen could not protect Naruto from someone like Orochimaru. "Come now, Naruto-kun," Orochimaru said almost affectionately. "I already know about that place you found that Nokajiri of yours, so why don't you tell me what else you found?" he asked, curious about what the blonde Chunin had discovered that he had not. Naruto scowled. "You've been there, you should know what I found." He snarled. "Yaju, Bakemono, Yokai, the arcane!" He snapped. "I don't care what you're after, but the only thing you'll find down there is death and blood," he warned. "Yet you came out alive." Orochimaru mused, and the blonde closed his mouth tightly, his lips thin. He couldn't risk giving anything away about that with some sarcastic retort that was the first thing to spring to mind. "Well, perhaps this sample will be enough, and we don't need this subject anymore," Kabuto suggested callously as he lifted the blood vial. Orochimaru nodded as Naruto's eyes widened and he lunged for the vial. The black-haired Sannin swung at the neck of the blonde. Blood sprayed out from the resulting wound as Kabuto stepped back and Naruto hit the ground as his vision faded. He opened his eyes in the dream. "No," he muttered before he stood. "No, no, 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 no." He panicked. "Good Ryoshi, has something gone wrong?" the doll asked with a concerned tone. "I need to get back to my body. I need to restore it quicker than usual. They'll die," Naruto rambled. The doll tilted her head and the world of the dream turned still. "I am afraid the dream lacks that power innately," she informed, and the blonde felt despair. "However, you contain the power required to make it happen. Should we be able to negotiate it from the one who wields it?" she added. Naruto blinked. "The Kyuubi can help?" he asked incredulously.